Okay. Good morning. Welcome. Most of you here I've spoken with in the past, so you've heard my perspective many times, but we'll circle around it as best we can. What spirituality is largely very misunderstood. A lot of well-intentioned systems and traditions of spirituality are available that people participate in, and a lot of these foster an erroneous implication and misunderstanding of what is relevant and what is actually important in spirituality. There's only one thing that matters, and there's only one thing that matters in spirituality, and that is discovering what this is, coming to recognize what this is, what you are. And one of the very interesting aspects of that is that what this is, what you are, is completely irrespective of what seems to be happening. It's completely irrespective of what you do, what you don't do, how you behave, whether you're a good person, whether you're a bad person, whether you're a success, whether you're a failure, whether you're just a complete fuck up. This is irrelevant. It has absolutely nothing to do with the existential quality of the fact of the being of this, that this actuality is actually here right now, that your field of experience is present. That's what matters, not what it looks like or what's going on in it. Which is not to say that you have absolute freedom to participate in your experience any way you want. By all means, try to go after the things you want, try to pursue what you're interested in, try to avoid what you are not interested in. All that is fine, but it has absolutely nothing to do with spirituality and will not in any way impact whether or not you recognize what this is. You can be totally, it has nothing to do with psychological health. You can be neurotic and completely dysfunctional and obsessive and whatever. And that doesn't necessarily in any way impede potentially noticing what this is, or for that matter, not noticing. It's completely independent. So the one thing that matters is noticing what this is, discovering what you are, discovering the true perspective on what is going on here. And because it turns out when you discover what this is, when you discover what you are, that discovery includes some really just incredibly profound implications, that the whole package of which constitutes basically what has been called liberation, which is you discover that the world never happened. You discover that nothing matters. You discover that you are complete, inviolable, unutterable wholeness beyond space and time, always have been and always will be, so on and so forth. I mean, it sounds wonderful to talk about it, but the point is that it's possible and even easy to discover and notice this directly and self-verifyingly. And that's the only thing that matters. That's the only dividing line that's relevant whatsoever.
Yes.
What do you say after that? And it's very, very paradoxical. It's very slippery because, of course, you already are what you already are. You already are what you always have been and always will be. And yet, strangely, it's possible to not notice that fact and to completely misunderstand it. And equally strangely, it is possible to notice that fact and understand it very profoundly. And equally strangely, there's not really any difference whatsoever between those two conditions. So it's very, very paradoxical and very peculiar. However, having said that, the only real substance in spirituality is this recognition or not. It's the only issue. It's the only consideration that is relevant, that matters at all, that carries any weight, that has any importance, that has any implication.
Recognize it intellectually or actually be it?
No, recognizing it intellectually will do you no good whatsoever. It may or may not be part of your process of coming to recognize it intellectually. But recognizing it intellectually per se is no different than recognizing anything intellectually. The main impediment to recognizing what we are is we think we already know what we are. Think you know what you are, and not just consciously or deliberately, but just unconsciously, where it's not accessible, where you can't really get at it. It's just people just have an assumption. Oh, well, this, I know what this is. This is the world, and I'm in it, and this is my life, and blah blah blah, whatever. Everyone could narrate all the conditions, whatever, but it's not in the narration. It's not in the thought of it, but it's in the felt sense of that actuality. That's a big impediment, because that's blocking, essentially, or impeding the actual condition, which is unutterably and drastically different than any interpretation or any narrative of what this is that can possibly be held. Because what this is completely unthinkable. It's too weird. It's too bizarre. I mean, I say things like, this has never happened, and this beyond space and time, and what does that even mean, And yet it's literally true. It's literally true that is the case. But it makes absolutely no sense. It's totally wacko, So anything that does make any kind of sense is liable to be a boat anchor in terms of enabling yourself to let go into this actuality as it is. But there's a lot of good news. There's a lot on the side of recognition, which is mainly that this actually is as it is, and it's not hidden, it's not concealed. There's no secrets. Everything about this is nakedly displayed. It's completely obvious, and it's completely available to investigation. So it's not like you need to not look at anything and go to something else. No, if you look at things, you'll see exactly what reality is. Everything completely and clearly displays reality. But it's very, very subtle. So it's also amenable to these gross misinterpretations, which gives rise to the sort of various worldviews of normalcy that we're all very familiar with, consensus realities and so on and so forth, all of which are completely untrue.
Anything you think you know is false.
Yeah, absolutely. Blanket across the board. Yeah.
How about the fact that I'm here right now?
Well, you're here right now is fundamentally true, except there's no you and there's no here and there's no now. But if you look at what you really is, you look at what here really is, and look at what now really is, then yeah, you're here now.
So something is.
Something is, but there's no something. And is questionable, but yeah, other than well, you can't narrow it. You can't retake it anywhere. You have to. it's just the real thing. But yeah, no, what you're saying is true, but what's important is the way in which it's true. And the way in which it's true is very strange, very subtle, very weird, very nonlinear. For example, you alone exist. I mean, everyone knows this. Little babies know this. They know the world spins around them, and the world exists for them, and everything is, at their beck and call. And that's literally true. You alone exist. Of course, I alone exist. And that's a weird paradox, but there you go. I told you it was weird. Sorry? Yeah?
is it like a black hole effect where I experienced something a couple of days ago where nothing existed, just like a black hole, like a nothingness that seems
In a way, yeah. A black hole is not a nothingness. It's just an extreme weirdness. Yeah, in a way, it's a lot like a black hole. Yeah, that's a good way. That's actually a good model if you really go into the physics of it. You are a black hole, and the entire manifestation of apparent reality is your event horizon. That's a nice little model. Yes.
You said, if I understand correctly, there's no now. So yeah, because I thought that was the only thing I could know for sure. There's only now. Yeah.
Well, there's only now is good. That's another way of saying the same thing.
I see.
But the point of saying there's no now is just, yeah, there's only now, but look very carefully at what now is, because it's not anything. There's only now, but you can't find it. Try and find now.
Yeah.
It's completely obvious, it's self-evident, but exactly where is it? When is it? It's like, I mean, here it is, but once you said that, what more can you, where can you go with that? You know, there's nothing, you can't find it. It's actual, but you can't find it. And this is, you know, an illustration, you know, a profound aspect of the weirdness of this condition. It's actual, it's explicit, but you can't find it. You can't pin it down. It's like it's dreamlike. It's like a dream. It's here, but you try to go looking for what it is, and you don't ever get to the bottom of it. You don't ever find anything definitive.
And it's weird because it can't be explained in words. It's got to
Absolutely not. It's completely beyond conceptualization. But you have, but there's a lot going in your favor in terms of realizing it. Number one, it's actual, so it's available. You can check it out. You can explore it yourself. And number two, you are it. So you have complete access to it. It's not like it's something where you need to develop some superior skills or chops or philosophies or something to be able to. You already are it. So you inherently, just by your very nature of what you are, have a complete ability to be with it as it is, because you actually are as it is. So your very nature is its nature, so it's accessible to you. In other words, you're not approaching it. It's not something you're approaching from outside. It's an inside job.
Are you experiencing it right now?
Sure, everyone's experiencing it right now. It's not a matter of a different or a new condition. It's a matter of recognition, and recognition can be said in a big sense to recognize what it isn't, and what it isn't is everything that everyone has ever thought it is. Yes.
So, knowingness is limited.
Knowingness is unlimited. Conceptualization is apparently limited. Conceptualization is actually unlimited, because conceptualization isn't actually conceptualization. The rational mind isn't actually rational. In other words, it's not what we think it is, but nothing is what we think it is, so there's no surprise there. Another way of putting it is, everything we're familiar with is actual. Personality is actual, self is actual, thoughts are actual, conceptual mind is actual, all these things are actual, but none of them are what we think they are. What they all are is call them symptoms or manifestations of this profound transcendental actuality, which is what really is here. They're like the waves on the ocean, and waves aren't other than the ocean. Waves are the ocean. They're just what the ocean looks like. So conceptual thought is what absolute transcendental being beyond space and time happens to look like. Sitting here in this room, in this lovely day, in this company, is what absolute transcendental being beyond space and time happens to look like. Go figure. Yes?
So, I'd like to kind of do, not stream of consciousness in the moment. It's a little too I'm vulnerable, but to just kind of share and then then I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
So, okay, so I'm just gonna just do this. So everything is total, not right now, but I'm just giving you.
Sure.
So everything is completely, infinitely silent, and everything that is in that silence is beyond ordinary, same old, and yet extraordinary, and spasm in the back, oh shit, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And everything is completely blank and open and infinite. Oh shit, spasm in the upper back, what's going on? I'm wasting my time. This is a crock of shit. Why would anybody want to do this? Everything has a clarity and a peace and just a sense of rightness in the moment. You are totally fucking up your life. Why are you focusing on this
Mm-hmm.
ridiculousness? And on and on
Mm-hmm.
and on. And I attempt to the best I can to just keep noticing it all. You know, just going, okay, there it is, more, and the question I have is there, I know you've said it doesn't resolve.
Right.
Okay, so
Absolutely.
is there a point that it sort of evens, or is this just, I don't know what the it is. I mean, I don't even know what the hell's going on here. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
I do.
I mean, can you? So I appreciate the time.
Sure. You're having true deep intuitions of what this is, but the process of settling into that can look like a process. It can look like symptoms. It can look like moving back and moving into it and pulling back. It can look like all sorts of karmic stuff of psychological symptoms or physical symptoms or weird karmic events in your life. All kinds of weird things can seem to go on, all as, you know, call it apparent symptoms of the process of moving into this more deeply. And I don't hear anything there that bothers me.
So the more messed up your life is, the closer you get.
Possibly. I mean, not definitively, but maybe.
Well,
put it this way: moving into this stuff with any depth or profundity is provocative and can be catastrophic in various ways. I would say it's probably rare for individuals to just sort of have a smooth, easy, graceful, beautiful transition into realization. More typically, it's catastrophic to various degrees, and often ongoingly catastrophic.
If I asked you for a recommendation to rediscover it, what would
This is it. Participate in what is here. You already are. Just do what you're doing. I mean, another way to put what you're addressing, another way to put my answer to what you addressed is, whatever you're doing is your natural and complete process of moving into this, because there's nothing else happening here. What this is reality discovering itself. I mean, that's in a very profound sense what's going on here. That's why the universe exists, is because reality is checking itself out, reality is moving into itself, reality is discovering itself. And we experience this individually, let's say, in terms of our own sort of spiritual unfoldment or wising up or whatever. And so part and parcel of every event, all of the totality of our life, of our being, of our participation is this event already. So, I mean, the the honest answer to what you asked is just be yourself. And because there's nothing excluded, there's nothing included for that matter. It doesn't. Nothing needs to be done. Nothing. You don't need to stop doing this and start doing this. It's not like that. It's more a matter of developing sensitivity to what it already is. It's like sensitivity training. Is what it really is. It's not anything new. It's just being more sensitively with right. What's happening right here? What's happening this morning while you had your coffee? Whatever. Just really being with the subtlety of the moment. A vote of confidence back there.
Whatever we create in our minds is like another version of it. It's like there's really only one it, right?
Yes.
And then right, and then like we can't change it. It can't be manipulated or
Right.
anything. And then whatever we create, whatever we think it is, that might be different. It's just a variation
Right.
of it. They're normal. Okay, so there's just one it, and it can never be changed or anything.
Right. Can't be changed, but doesn't need to be changed.
But
Because there's nothing to change. Because it's everything. It's inclusive already. It's the context within which all this stuff happens. But the main discovery with thinking is that it is partial. It's inadequate. It's inaccurate. And sensitivity will naturally lead you to that, to seeing that clearly, with ever increasing clarity. When you'll just notice, gosh, I think about things as being a certain way, and there's so much more going on than that. Anything I can think of is vastly more than the way I think of it. I think of what I'm going to do tonight or something. What I actually do tonight is going to be vastly more than any little picture I can have in my head of what it's going to be like.
Because everything affects everything else. And
well, you can't even say just because there's infinite detail, infinite richness, infinite qualities that are infinitely unstable and continually morphing into more infinite qualities and difference and nuance and everything. I mean, it's just too much information, if nothing else.
my thought vibrates to the end of the universe. Of course, there is no universe. So
Your thought. Anything incorporates everything. So any thought you have is the universe. And the way in which that works is unexplainable, so it's best not even to go into it. Yes.
Okay. So if I'm obsessing about something that a person said, they said, for instance, let's say some Bible teacher says, well, that's unscriptural, and then my mind, for whatever reason, starts obsessing or worrying about or even questioning what I think versus what she thinks. And then the answer to any negative disturbance is simply to just be yourself. Just don't try to figure it out.
Sure.
Don't try to figure out. Is it some old pain body or whatever?
The process of going through what you're calling disturbances and all of these various events, these various energy events,
mm-hmm.
The very process of going through it is what to do. Because by going through it, it evolves, it develops itself, it matures.
So,
in other words, going through whatever you're going through is the way to get to what you're going to go through next. Kind of obvious.
So enjoy the ride.
Yeah, definitely enjoy the ride. I mean, why not? The alternative sucks.
Yeah, I'm always struck by how I mean, when I listen to the satsangs also on tape or MP3s, how my mind tries to make mental models of what you're saying, and then and how you can turn radiance and presence into something tame that you approach with, or like only one thing happening. When it's actually like when I actually experience it, it's like having a blowtorch in your face.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah. Then you can notice that, and yet it can happen, and yet the radiance Because when you're having thoughts and you're having these, absurd modelings, oversimplifications of situations, it's the radiance doing that. So even that is a potency of the radiance. The radiance can create these caricatures, these partial caricatures of itself that then show up as our thoughts.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is just endlessly weird.
Well, and the weird thing, it's sort of an exercise in futility because the models are all an attempt to approach this. When it's not, how do you approach something that's already face,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's it, And it's all a matter of basically, it's one simple way to put it, it's a matter of learning to multitask. Just because you happen to be thinking doesn't mean you're not also in no thought. It's not either or. Because thought happens in the context of no thought. Space happens in the context of no space. Outside happens in the context of inside. All of these things that we think of as this condition or that condition are actually not mutually exclusive. They coexist. All conditions coexist. So all dimensions are present. So they're all available. So no dimension shuts another dimension down. The smallness and stupidity of conceptual thought does not in any way impact or shut down the vastness and vitality and actuality of the present radiance. It just doesn't matter. It's like saying a cloud blocks the sky, a cloud stops the sky. The sky doesn't give a shit whether there's a cloud there or not. The sky's in the cloud. And it's the same with, again, it's all these misunderstandings that show up in sort of, garden variety spiritualities that there's either or, I have to learn this. If only I could learn to stop thinking, then I'd be, it's like, no. It's so much simpler than that.
Just focus somewhere else.
Yeah. Go somewhere else. If you look in your experience, there's infinite dimensions. You can be anywhere in your experience, and if you don't like that, you can be anywhere else. And if you've been everywhere, you can still be somewhere else. And if you've been everywhere, you can still be somewhere else, because it's literally infinite, not infinite as a figure of speech or a poetic image or some hyperbole about saying a lot more. It's literally fucking infinite, which means that there's no limit to where you can be in your own experience. And, so, my brain's racing, there's too much thought. It's like, okay, cool, so go over there where there isn't any thought. And then whether or not that your brain's racing, who gives a shit? Because over here, that's just a non-issue. It's like, God, I hate this room. Well, go in the front yard, drive, take an airplane to another city, take a rocket into space. Shoot yourself. I mean, there's just so many alternatives. Wherever you are, there's always another place to be that will be completely different.
Or just look into that.
Sorry?
Or if you hate the room that you're in, just look.
Absolutely, sure. There's all different kinds of ways of navigating because again, it's all dimensions within dimensions within dimensions, infinitely fractal, and none of it mutually exclusive. You can go away from something, you can go into something, you can go through something, it's limitless to we talk about these metaphors of sort of spatial navigation, but it's not like that.
It's the same thing, just be sensitive to whatever you're doing.
Yes. And when you're sensitive to what you're doing, you'll discover there's nothing in particular you're doing. You're doing an infinity of things simultaneously that can't be found, can't be concretized, can't be isolated, and they're all instantly morphing into something else. Which spreads out into each individual, spreads out into infinite dimensions, and so on.
And the conceptual mind just sees one thing at a time, but everything's happening all at once.
Yeah, and that's irrelevant because again, the conceptual mind is just a very small dimension in all this vast dimensionality. So,
but we allow it to control it.
Yeah, and that's cool too because again, it doesn't block anything, it doesn't stop anything. It's not mutually exclusive. It's not like the conceptual mind is bad and non-conceptual is good. Conceptual mind is just it's a very arbitrary set of infinite dimensions that exist in an infinity of other infinite dimensions that are completely unlike it, and none of them impact each other.
So it seems like the trouble is that we get habituated into keeping our focus on the limited, the conceptual mind.
It's not so much the focus, it's the belief that is a limitation. Focus is actually not limitation.
Okay, but there's some kind of constriction of energy.
Well,
how would you say?
There's a belief in a constriction of energy, but there's never an actual constriction of energy. Energy is never constricted, it can't be.
Right, but there's the sense of it.
Right.
Which is why.
And that
we
sense of it
tend-
is a fantasy.
Right.
Like, it's like a prison.
Yeah, it's an imaginary prison. I'm stuck in this prison. It's like, there's no prison there. You know, and there's a lot of ways to discover there's no prison there. And you can think about it, you can analyze it, you can try. Where's the wall? I mean, you know, you just poke at it and eventually you discover that it's not true.
But it seems like that belief, that perspective that holds on to the belief, comes about because at a certain point in our development, that's an appropriate thing.
Yes,
Like when you're a little
exactly so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
exactly
the problem
so.
is that we don't graduate from it.
Exactly so. But you can.
Right. Most people don't.
Yeah, yeah, exactly so.
So when it
Exactly
becomes
so.
uncomfortable, then we can do the spiritual.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. And if you have a little wit or a little luck, you can actually be successful in that and actually graduate.
Right.
Or you can work, you can bang your head against it, and that's cool too, because at least you're having at it, you know.
Where does morality fit into spirituality? For instance,
Not at all. But just irrelevant. It's not good or bad. It's just irrelevant. It's like asking where does morality fit into auto mechanics? Where does the morality fit into physics? Where does morality fit into?
There are some spiritualists that say the only rule, do no harm. Okay. For instance, if you're contemplating stealing or killing yourself, and there's something deep that says that no, that doesn't feel right. Are you saying there's no universality here? There's not. What's affecting that hesitation to do harm?
None at all. It's just the turbulence of your own energy system. You know, we are complex, infinitely complex dynamic energy systems, and there's all kinds of turbulence and cross purposes and multiple motivations and divergent currents of flow, we'll call it whatever, in the system that we are. It's like a ongoing, storm or whatever. Who knows? And so, we may experience this as an urge to do this, and then no, but and a conflicted, urge not to, and I mean, this, we're not simple unified energy systems. We're infinitely complex, chaotic, turbulent energy systems.
If let's say somebody commits a murder and then it's plaguing them constantly afterwards. It's just, you're saying that's an arbitrary choice as far as.
Of course. Just like if I have my hair colored and it's plaguing me afterwards. So the point is, the morality is fine, but morality is irrelevant in terms of spirituality. Morality is absolutely fine in its own level. I mean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with trying to be a good person and trying to be successful and trying to be healthy,
And there's nothing wrong with not trying to do any of those.
Absolutely. From a spiritual point of view, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
From a functional point of view, the arguments can be made against it. but screw that, arguments can be made for it. I mean, you can take any side in the debate if you're skillful enough, right? Yeah.
So given the preponderance of immorality in carpenter shops, can you recommend a good, honest repair shop?
I can't.
Well, there you go. But is he lying? He's recommending an honest repair shop, but is he honest? Yeah, look at it.
I'm willing to take a chance.
Yeah, compare them.
You know what, though? I think that if you do what Peter was saying earlier of being sensitive to this experience of being, something tells you, even if it's very silent in the background, not a good place, turn around, take it somewhere else.
Sure.
And you can, because I see that happening all the time from my own experience.
Sure.
So it's that sensitivity that gets you to look at to get you to really be the big experience, the big bang, the big experience.
Yeah, as your sensitivity increases and as your subtlety increases, basically another way to put that, you could say as your wisdom increases, your skillfulness in functioning will also increase. Your skillfulness at being what you are, let's call it, will also increase. And so issues of morality just become irrelevant because you become a truly moral person, not because you're following some external system of morality, but because you're functioning with intelligence and meaningfulness and profundity and in essential harmony with your nature.
And even the functionality still doesn't matter, just the sensitivity to the it matters, like way, like that's all there is.
Yeah, of course. Because functionality or dysfunctionality is just symptoms of your process of moving into your death.
Yeah, because if I try hard to be functional, I'm trying hard to just play this game.
Exactly. Dysfunctionality can actually be very useful. Dysfunctionality can be a useful component in our mechanism of unfoldment.
Versus just being sensitive to it, which is.
Well, not so much versus, but what I'm saying is that, in terms of behavior, in terms of functioning, in terms of, what you do, how you, what you participate in, it does not matter, and all of it is inclusively your process. Everything you do is your process to take you to what you're going to be doing. And that's your process to take you to what you're going to be doing. And that's your process to take you to what you're going to do. It's an endless unfoldment into greater subtlety, greater wisdom, greater intelligence.
So my life is truly what I make of it.
Yeah, but it already is. It's not like you can make it better. It means you are making it the absolute. Right now, your life is the absolute optimum it could be for your process of you being you. You could say it couldn't be otherwise, but not just in a fatalistic sense, in a sense that no, it's not important.
Yeah, that Zen saying, first there's a chair, then it's not a chair, then it's a chair.
I thought it was a mountain.
What? Yeah. Well,
Chair mountain.
That's
Morality. First there's the morality, then there's no morality, then there's immorality.
What in different teachings and what in my experience, that there's this abhorrence or this attachment, and in Christianity, it's good and evil, and
Sure.
in Buddhism, it's clinging,
Sure.
So I think so. It seems to me that that's that first chair. That's first not when one is operating from, and I'll call that ignorance, that state of that. This is what it is, and I like it, and this is what it is, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And all kinds of subtle permutations. While that's going on, that's sort of blocking that entrance into seeing things as they are.
In a way, it's blocking it. In another way, being in that mode is the process to transcending it. Every functional mode you're in is the process of its own transcendence. Like childhood is a process of getting to teenagehood. Teenagehood is a process of getting to adulthood.
But as I go through my life at this stage, whatever, then and I'm seeing these reactions and these consequences as they seem to me, and I go, wait a minute, and don't do that. Do something different, and find that I'm getting a wiser, more harmonious, whatever response. And I'm going, well, I guess I'm on the right track here.
Yeah, you're smartening up.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what it's all about, really, smarten up. Yeah.
I saw a picture of a dead body on the internet
Uh-huh.
yesterday. It was covered, but I knew, the body was dead, and it became instantly obvious that I am is what animates it,
Right.
not that thing laying on the bed. And then once I saw that, I saw everything is animated.
Yeah, exactly so.
And then I kind of did some processing, like, okay, so what is this? What makes me feel like me, or and what I came up with, the word I came up with was tension.
Right.
Okay, there's some kind of tension here, and then I started looking at tension, and that it wasn't even tension, it was kind of like started to disperse.
Mm-hmm.
And then something happens, and again, it's tension. And again, like, now, like, at any time, any discomfort comes up or happens, it's an automatic, like, okay, it's just a sensation, tension.
Right.
And then it's not.
Right.
And it just kind of feels like,
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's the process of energy. The very mode of energy processing itself is this kind of, sort of tension release, or conflict and then dissipation, conflict. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to put it, and a lot of different ways it shows up. But it is what you are, and it is also your process. And there's nothing but this going on. It goes on in the level of our emotions. It goes on the levels of our mind. It goes on the level of our bodies, our physical functioning. It goes on very, very subtle levels. It goes on every level of your being. Is this energy dancing with itself, and its mode is very dynamic, and it's continually interacting with itself. Let's say.
And in an instant, she just became sensitive to that, which is like awesome.
And it's like everything is so much, smaller. I used to think that I couldn't communicate with certain people because of their very strong belief systems. And then I saw how little it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. They're so much bigger than the little yapping mouth.
Yeah, exactly. You can always relate to people, and if need be, you just slip around behind whatever that's blocking it, and then they're there too. You slip in the back door.
And when you relate like that, it's like they can't hold it for too long. It's like it's almost. I was talking to this person about tangible versus intangible. He's trying to convince me everything is tangible, and I was like, what about love? I'm like, oh, love, that's not, and then something, kind of got weird. And like, can you, where is it? Where is it? Can you pinpoint where love is? Well, it's just like one of those, it's one of those things. Like, wait a minute, it's like, well, let's talk about cure for cancer. Like, okay, let's talk about cure for cancer. Why do you want to cure cancer? What do you care if there's no love? If there's cure for cancer, it's like you want to save somebody you love, right? So you do tangible things for intangible reasons, and then that whole thing. Like, what are you, like, what are you doing? Like, somebody set you up to this? Yeah.
And then you get Peter's address, right?
Yeah.
Great. That was great. I can feel you.
Mm-hmm.
Impact the
It's not me. I mean, it is, but
I could just say I can feel it I can feel it regardless of where I'm at. I just tune into it
Yeah.
at will.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is it. This actuality is it. Always is. Wherever you are, everything is right there, and it's palpable. You know, it really is palpable. It's just a matter. Again, like I said, it's kind of sensitivity training. It's just kind of like, it's palpable. You can feel it. It's subtle, but it's very specific. It's very actual. And so, just let yourself recalibrate your scale of subtlety, so you can be with what's actual, but you can't put a handle. It's actual, but it's relatively ambiguous. You can't put a handle on it. You can't pin it down. You can't think about it. But it's actual and profound and really juicy, and it suggests and implies entirely new modes of participation, entirely new modes of engagement that are much deeper than most normal human modes.
In regards to it, it's just said it feels like the process is getting more sensitive, getting more subtle, and then whatever it is that wants to grab and understand, like that gets like more sensitive and and grabs at a much more sensitive thing that it ever tried to grab at before, and then there's like getting sensitive and seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it's peeling the layers of the onion. It's ongoing.
Yeah.
It's there's no bottom.
Yeah, exactly. There's no bottom.
I mean, this is one of this very principle is one of the reasons why it's very difficult to assess where you're at in terms of spirituality, because as you develop in your actual let's just call it subtlety, at the same time you develop in your sensitivity of awareness, so you become aware of all your shortcomings
on a more subtle level.
On a more subtle level, so they see. So God, I'm just as much of a fuck up as I ever was, and yet because everything feels the same, you feel that you're very sensitive to everything that annoys you about yourself and about your situation and your functioning, the same as always, and yet it's actually very, very refined. It's just that you've developed sensitivity, so you're more sensitive to it. So it can seem like it's very, very much the same. But then if you look at your normal state of mind or your normal functioning or your normal sense of self like 10 or 15 years ago and compare how different they are, you'll see, wow, no, things are really, something's going on, right? Even though it feels the same. Here I am and it's the same old shit, right? Yeah. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to self-assess in spirituality.
So doesn't that leave you maybe just looking at the looking?
Well, you're always looking at the looking.
Okay.
Not that
But I
leaves
mean,
you.
less interested in chasing your own tail at a deeper and deeper level. I think that's what I was hearing.
Well, various things happen, but whatever happens, it tends to continue and persist happening, but it just tends to get subtler.
It isn't exactly tail chase.
No,
Oh, okay.
It's not that. No.
it's not exactly one.
Tail chasing.
Yeah.
And what exactly is tail chasing?
Well, there's that as well.
Yes. It helps to have a tail.
And a chaser. Here's the tail. Here's the chaser. Do your thing.
It helps to know what you're chasing.
Or not.
Or not.
Just maybe just like looking into a pool or something and seeing infinitely more and more and more. That's what's endless.
Yeah. Sure, absolutely. And that's what we've always been doing and will always continue to do. That's what experience is. Experience is reality looking at its own energy and then it seems to be a certain way. And then it develops subtlety and it looks at its energy and it seems to be a certain way. And it develops more subtlety and it looks at its energy and it seems to be a certain way. And that continues forever. And we call that the passage of time. Every moment feels different in different situation and everything's changed, but it's still just experience. And
there's the difference between looking with a certain kind of anxiety where you're looking for something to find something.
Well, there's different degrees, yeah, sure, but there's different degrees of subtle anxiety that comes up, and anxiety morphs and transcends being anxiety, but there's always degrees of tensions, because it's the nature of the energy itself that it is in let's call it dynamic tension with itself.
Right.
Is that passage of time that you were talking about, do you ever get to a point where you don't experience passage of time?
Well, after a while, you come to see the way in which time doesn't exist, but it never did exist. So you experience it in a different way, but it's still the same thing. It's still what you could call the passage of time, but what your experience of it is very different than it might once have seemed to be.
So passage of time is just a belief.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Everything is a belief of something that is absolutely beyond that.
How do you get past that? The belief, I mean.
You already passed it. It's only a part of you that is not, and you just need to notice the parts of you that are past it, and that's how you get past it.
Notice the parts that are past it.
Yeah.
How you get past it. And what if you notice the parts that are not past it? Is that how you get past it too?
Sure. I mean, ultimately, because they coexist. The one comes with the other. So sooner or later, it percolates out that way.
So every time I see something, because in this existence, this life, it's like everything is a belief, right?
Yeah.
You look at this is the table, that's a belief.
Sure, it's a belief that it's a table, but what it is not a belief, and what it is not a table. So the belief is there, but also the non-belief condition is also there. And you're with the table, but you're also with the non-table. Because you're not seeing a table, you're seeing light. You're seeing color. So belief is there, but it's partial. It's a very small dimension in an infinite field of dimensions.
The trick is to see that the belief is just like a table. It's just something in perception.
Yeah.
It's meaning.
Yeah, beliefs are objects. Right here. That's an object. That sound is just an object. Right? And then a thought is an object. A belief is an object. And what an object happens, like I clap my hands, the room doesn't disappear. Objects don't actually impede each other. Right? So you hear a sound, you don't stop seeing. You see something, you don't stop thinking. You believe something, it doesn't impact your seeing or your thinking or anything. Everything happens independently, and nothing gets in anything's way in terms of the actual energy of what you are.
So you're kind of saying, don't worry about it.
I am saying don't worry about it. I'm saying exactly, don't worry about it.
Yeah, let's believe, don't worry about it because it's really not there.
Yeah, Meher Baba said, don't worry, be happy. I can wholeheartedly say exactly the same thing. I just I'm more long-winded about it.
One thing that helped noticing. Somebody said, whatever doesn't fit into the wheelbarrow. Notice whatever doesn't fit into the wheelbarrow. Which is like what you're talking about, color, sound, intangible things like love. They don't fit. For me, there's something going with that. It's like, oh, right, it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
So notice that.
And there's all kinds of tricks, but the master formula is whatever is present in your experience is small, and there's vast otherness than what you're focusing on. Always available, present, right front and center, obviously. So whatever you're fixated on, there's infinite otherness than that which is equally present and available. So this complete unstuckness experientially.
Yeah, I'm finding that at one point you were really pointing out the whole field, and for a long time I sort of been entertaining it almost like a trick. Okay, pay attention to the field.
Sure.
But actually, what's happening is that the field, the background, just the sort of stuff that doesn't normally come front and center, like light or sky or something like that, actually is just as alive as anything going on. Supposed to,
of course,
traditionally called inside.
Yeah.
Like a feeling or.
Sure.
or thought, and then when that starts coming alive, that's when I think for me that's where the juice is.
Sure. I mean, the most potent engagement is to the liveliness of the radiance, the sizzle of it, the energy of it. One of the main threads in Kashmir Shaivism is completely that. Just feel the aliveness of the radiance, and bang, you go right smack to the very essence. And because it's everywhere, there's nothing that's not it. And everything is nothing other than this aliveness. The aliveness is why everything and anything is showing up. And it's palpable. Just feel it. Feel your own vitality. Feel the shining forth of the sun. Feel the pull of gravity. Feel, just anything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Feel the way color is bright. Anything. It doesn't matter. And it's not an abstraction. It's an actuality, and it's palpable. It's completely this vitality. You can call it the energy of being. It permeates all phenomena. It permeates all of experience, and it is absolutely primal. It's absolutely transcendental. It's not coming from any place. It's not going to any place. It's not doing anything except it's doing everything, and it is everything. So, so that's a very efficient and direct point of access, sort of experiential contact point that is radically primal. And just let yourself feel it as it is, and it really obviously it's Yeah, feel free to come and go if you want to get more chai or the bathroom or anything like that. We don't stand on formality here. Yes?
Well, I would say that has been the biggest help you've been to me is that I opened out rather than
good.
Turn.
Yeah.
Especially the sky and the ocean and just walking down the street.
Yeah. Experience is so rich, and whatever you're focusing on, no matter how small or how big, there's just always vastness outside of it, and it's completely available. It's all just right here.
That's outside.
Well, outside, inside. I mean, that's arbitrary. I mean, experientially. Yeah. I mean, outside of anything. So even say you're obsessing about a thought or a feeling or a memory or something, even that has an out. There's inside. There's that, and then there's. It is in a context that is not it. Just like when you're driving in the street is in a context that's not the driving and not the street. There's the sky, there's the sun, there's the trees. And likewise, when you're obsessing and there's a thought or a feeling or whatever, that's occurring, but then there's all of this other subtle internal experience that's also present that is not that. In other words, everything occurs in a context that's other than itself.
Well, I think I'm getting better at what you just said, but still I get caught.
Sure. Yeah, don't worry about getting caught. The thing is, don't worry about the problems. Worry about the solutions. So, and don't worry about getting caught happens, but just keep going to the availability of alternatives when that shows up. So don't, in other words, don't punish yourself for what you're doing wrong. Just go to bypass it.
I'm trying less and less not to punish. Like if my mind keeps doing it in the middle of the night, I will get up and do what my mind is wanting me to do rather than say go away.
Sure.
But still, it's a problem.
Yeah, but even that problem exists in a context that's not that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know that.
Yeah. But just let yourself experientially access that, like you were talking about with with when you're walking in the sky and these kinds of things. Because anywhere you are in your experience, wherever that is in a context that's other than that. Everything is in something else that's bigger than, and that is in something else that's bigger than it, and that's in something else that's bigger than it forever and ever. So whatever you're in, no matter how comprehensive, there's an outside that you're also in. However big the jail is that you're in, you're actually also outside it. And now, here and now, experientially, and so that's completely available. I like the model of a bullfighter, This bull's charging at you. You don't need to stop him from charging. You just step aside. So all of our craziness and our obsession and our focus and all this stuff, you don't need to stop doing it. Just step aside. Just like, go over here. You don't need to stop anything that is a challenge. Just notice that it's also not happening. Over here, it's not happening. And so it's not an issue over here. And you're actually there too. Because you're everywhere in your experience, and your experience is literally infinite. So no matter what's going on that's problematic, you're also someplace else that is not problematic, where that problem is just not present. And you actually are there right now. And so it's available experientially to notice that.
So that's a very big difference between trying to stop it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just slip out. Just bypass it.
Yeah. But don't feed it.
Well, yeah. I mean, orienting to anything is like throwing gasoline on a fire. So trying to solve a problem is actually making the problem stronger because you're validating it. You're giving it more importance. Whereas just sidestepping it, you're actually diminishing its importance. You're saying, hey, this doesn't even matter. I don't give a shit. I'm out of here.
Things tend to turn out better if you step aside as the bull charges rather than trying to wrestle with it.
Yeah. I mean, wrestle with the bull. It's like, sounds like a lot of work to me. A lazy man like myself. Yeah.
A question came up. Do you ever do what most people would call make a decision or make a choice?
Sure.
And can you describe the process?
No.
Would it? No.
But there's not much process these days.
Can you? I guess this is something that I find personally difficult.
Uh-huh.
So, is there anything you could say that might be a benefit?
Yeah, what you basically already know what you're going to choose. So again, it's just a matter of sensitivity. Say you have a bunch of options, and you're going to weigh them, and there's this option and that option and the other option, and well, gosh, what should I do here? And whether you're thinking it logically or you're just sort of feeling, however you're approaching it, there's ambiguity, there's ambivalence, and thinking, well, this looks good, but then this also kind of looks good. But somewhere something wins. Somewhere there's a stronger, one of them's a little like a hair more strong. And you save yourself a lot of trouble to just go to that one first. So in other words, just be honest with yourself about what's your dominant preference, and then just make that choice rather than going through a whole process of giving second runners the benefit of the doubt to the extent you can.
What I've noticed is the tendency is to kind of be in the uncertainty, as you just described, but that perpetuates for quite for more than the conventional time for most people.
Well, sure, it can, but that's why I recommend just bypass the process altogether and just jump right to the choice.
But the operative word you just said is preference.
Yeah, preference.
It's like it's not even, you don't even choose preference. I feel like it's like It's already there.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's in a way, it's like get honest, just because even if you're ambiguous, even if you have a bunch of conflicting motivations, or let's call them conflicting preferences, one of them is actually going to be the front runner. It just is, because they're never going to be exactly identical. And why not just like cut to the chase and go to that one? Do yourself a favor.
It goes back to what you were saying earlier about developing that sensitivity to see this.
Sure.
Once you get developed that sensitivity, making a choice is just an opportunity to develop it a little more, checking out what your preference really is,
Yeah.
amongst various preferences is also another opportunity for honing that sensitivity.
Sure.
It's all about that sensitivity to
Mm-hmm.
really see, be honest about what's there.
Yeah.
So sometimes I find it difficult to distinguish between my preference,
Mm-hmm.
the choice that I truly prefer, and what I feel moved to choose out of some longing that I experience that is based in a belief
Right.
that is not true.
Right. Sure. But
So
still in all, one of them is going to be stronger. Even if the one that's the strongest is something that's bullshit, choose it anyway. What the hell? It's just a choice. I mean, you don't need to be right. You just need to make the choice. There's no right. Everything leads to something else, which leads to something else, which leads to something else. And you can't know what's right because you can't know what any choice is going to lead to. What may look like exactly the right choice may in the long run lead to disaster, and the other way around. Who can say?
just be sensitive.
There's a subtle thought going in a frustration of not being able to, feeling that you're not able to make a decision. That's not different than having a thought that says that's a table. It's really another experience. Yeah, of course. So you can, like you were saying before, you can sidestep it and not make the decision, and in that sensitivity, in that moment of stepping away from the urge to, or the frustration of not being able to make a decision, you become sensitive enough to see what the next, where you watch where the hand goes. You just watch what the next thing you do.
So there's always a direction of subtlety available.
Sure, of course. And subtlety is wonderful because it enables you to change the rules.
Oh, you don't have to sell me on subtlety.
Good.
I just want to be better at it. That's very clear.
Well, have it. I'm pulling for you.
Thank you very much.
I'm thinking, resonating thinking of like this liberation story. I don't even remember it, but it's something like two masters of some kind come. They have an appointment to go somewhere, and they're at the gate. So we'll go stand under that tree, and one doesn't. Go stand under that tree. The other one does, and then they look at each other and start laughing uproariously and say they think this is a tree. So to me, that's illustrating that. There's this drama going on that one is participating in, and one sees enough that, okay, this is a tree, I can identify it, but imputing this certain reality to it, they don't.
And what things seem to be continually morphs as unfoldment progresses, and in a non-repeating way.
How did you come about experiencing that?
By accident. Well, partly by accident and partly by obsession.
Accident and obsession. question. Oh, you wanted to know when you.
All my life I've been a maniac of wanting to get to the bottom of things. And when I was a kid, I was a complete frustrated jerk because I was in this world and I thought this world doesn't make any sense, and you know, and no one knows what's going on, and they're all pretending they do, and that really pissed me off. And I was like, what am I going to do about this? And so I flailed around, did all kinds of things. But the accident part of it was, into my circle came this person that I started hanging out with, and it was as a result of being around them. It was quite an exceptional being. As a result of being around them, I had my erroneous world ripped away from me, which drove me nuts. but at the same time, it threw me into the deep end in terms of just sort of clearly showing me that I was right. What's going on here is astounding. Of course, exactly what that is and all that, it took me 20-some years to sort of settle into with any clarity.
20 years ago.
Well, 73, so more than that now.
So did you get to the bottom of things, or did you stop looking for the bottom?
Well, I found the bottom by having the top ripped off, which showed me there was no bottom. That's probably a good metaphorical way of putting it, which drove me nuts because I was just a stupid kid. I was in my 20s, my early 20s at that time, and I didn't have the perspective or maturity to assimilate that with any grace. So I was basically a crazy person for a long time.
You were functioning in a world.
Kind of.
Where were you?
I managed to eat and sleep sometimes.
You at home sometimes?
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes.
So is there hope for those of us who drank the Kool-Aid as children?
Absolutely. That can be a big advantage.
What was the question?
Yeah.
Getting back to the field a little bit. I was doing sort of a little suggested exercise or something I was reading about going back and looking at a memory from childhood and then going into it, and then a little later in life going to another memory. And the whole point of that, what you're supposed to get from it, was a sense of being that's still then and still there, so it's not changed.
Right.
But what hit me was that there was only the field. There was no. It doesn't come. It's not me experiencing the field.
Right.
It doesn't come that way. It's not independent. There is no.
Right.
All there is field.
Yes, all there is field, and you're it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's really here is the field, and that's what you are. That's what this is. And all these apparent specifics are just that, apparent.
And this is not this independent entity moving through it all. It just comes all the whole fucking thing together.
The whole fucking thing together. Yeah. There's a bumper sticker. There's nothing but the field. I mean, it's like you can think of a dream, and it might be a little clearer. In a dream, there seems to be all these specifics, and there may be people and things and objects and maybe cars or houses or whatever there is showing up in the dream, right? But there's nothing really there. All that's really there is the dreaming, which is the field of the presence of the dreaming. And yet it's presenting as all these apparent seeming specifics when there's not any actual specifics there. That's exactly what's going on here. So there's all these specifics, there's all these individual people and objects and situations and atoms and separate flashes of light. I mean, just everything. And yet there's nothing really here. It's not really here. All that's just here is this transcendental field, which happens to look like this, the way a dream happens to look like the dream looks, but without actually being that. It's like doing a virtual reality readout, a holographic virtual readout of something that is wholly other than that. And that's what you really are, it's the field. So you're not this body, you're not the personality. All these specifics that are showing up are just virtual holographic readouts, which exist only because the field is.
But they produce a feeling.
Oh, everything there's nothing but feeling. Yeah, the field is not inert. It's pregnant with meaningfulness and profundity and intelligence and so on and so forth.
Right. And even the pregnant is imaginary. Even the feeling is imaginary.
Well, it's not strictly imaginary. What if you interpret it as being this or that, that's imaginary. But the presence itself is not imaginary. All these experiential qualities are real. They're just not what they seem to be, and they're not where they seem to be, and they're not how they seem to be. But they're actual. All these qualities are actual. Yeah.
But you say that they're real, but they're not with the narration.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
There's a certain kind of skillful playing with the narration that we can do as human beings. Which
Absolutely.
Is what the point is.
Well, sure. I mean, I would know if I go say that's the point of it, but that certainly is true. And there's no limit to skillfully playing with things. There's no limit to that. But the important thing is discovering what it is, and that's the ultimate in skill. Is to get to the bottom of what's really going on.
Yeah, and I can understand you're hesitating to sign on to saying that that's the point of it, because that's. But how would you?
Different ways of putting the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, do you have another way of saying what you would say the point is?
Yeah, the point is this recognizing itself as it actually is, primally and nakedly and self-verifyingly. And when I say this recognizing itself, I mean you recognizing it because it is you.
Yeah.
So what is seeing your experience is actually this transcendental primal reality, and what is being seen is this transcendental primal reality. So it recognizing itself looks like you realizing what you are and what all this is. It's just a single holistic view of what is here, what's actually here. I mean, like comprehensively, like everything.
Right.
And that's what constitutes liberation. That's where the real bang is. And all the rest of it, skillful functioning and all that, that's great, by all means, and to a large extent that comes with. So that's kind of a nice little byproduct, it's sort of the benefits package of seeing what this is your functioning becomes maximally efficient and your intelligence becomes maximally engaged and so on and so forth. And we have access to all those anyway because we already are this hyper-intelligent transcendental being. You already are that. You always have been, and so you have access to all of these capabilities that show up in all of your skillful functioning, and there's no limit to how much more of that can, be manifested, be engaged.
It realizing itself can be more.
Sorry?
It realizing itself can be the most scariest thing.
Yeah, sure.
How do you realize? How do you get to it when you're just so pissed at somebody and you just want to leave? How do you get it?
Well, it's a challenge, but the challenge is this distraction. There's no problem with being pissed at somebody. There's no problem at all. It can be a lot of fun. The problem is that distracts you from anything else. Because that actually exists in the context of a lot of this other than it, and which is also there too. So the problem isn't any particular event, the problem is the distraction. And it's not actually a problem, but it can seem to be a problem.
It's almost like you have to step out of the way.
Yeah, exactly, step out of the way. And it's easy to do because you already are out of the way. You just need to notice the part of you that has already stepped out of the way, that is out of the way. Because even when you're in the thick of things, you're also outside that. Because you're everywhere. You're the whole thing.
Yeah.
You're the full field of your experience. You already are that. And so by noticing that, you have access, you have random access. You know, just because this is here doesn't mean you need to be here. This is here, and you can be here, but you can also be over here. And over here, things are very, very different. You know, and over here, they're more different again. And over here, they're more different again, and so on, forever. So you have infinite options in terms of, you know, sort of where you're being with the energy field.
As long as you don't, the belief on it.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Belief solidifies it and makes it seem to be something that actually it's actual and that you're trapped in. Yeah. But it's not. It never actually becomes that. It just seems to be that. And even when that's happening, you're actually outside that too. So you don't even need to stop belief. You just get out of it, and you are out of it. So just notice that you're out of it, and then bang, you sort of bilocate.
Because when you talk about the field or whatever, you know, I noticed that there's belief that comes up about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
but the field isn't. Oh yeah.
Thing.
Sure, but even the never-ending thing, you're outside of that too. And the field is definitely not what you think it is. But it is what it really is, and it's accessible and available and actually very clear because here it is. You are it.
And the showing up of the belief becomes another opportunity to notice.
Yes, exactly. You know, that's when you really get to be a sophisticated yogi, is when you can even use the things that seem to be the biggest impediments at the first as vehicles for as gifts, as vehicles for noticing, for wow, look at this, amazing, how can this possibly happen? It's incredible.
It's like pissed isn't actually pissed. It's actually something you could serve.
Exactly. It's transcendental radiance. I mean, that's really the point. That's all we got here. Your problems are made of transcendental radiance. Sucks, eh?
I've got this transcendental problem.
I know, right? This transcendental problem, it's its own solution. What should I do? What am I going to do? I don't know.
Yes, you said the experiential qualities within the field are actual, but not what they appear to be.
Yes.
Likewise, what the objects you experience in the let me understand. What you say, the objects you experience in the dream are not actual.
They are actual, but they're not actual objects. They're actual dream images. When you see a car, in a dream, there's no car there. It just looks like a car. It's an image.
The image is actual.
That can be held to be a car, but it's not a car. Mm-hmm. And when you see a car on the street here, it's not a car. What it is can't be said. I mean, you can get in and drive away, but getting in it isn't getting in it, and driving isn't driving. You know, what is it really? Well, you can't answer that question. But you can know it. You can be with it that way. And you can't say what anything is when you're being with what it actually is.
You can be with the car, you can't define it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he just made the comment, the image is real. That's not...
Sure, the image is real. It's a real image. But having said that, you have to see what an image is. If you think you know what an image is, a real image doesn't conform to your idea of what an image is. Nothing.
Actually, is a little more precise because
yes.
Real gives us the idea that the chair is real.
Yeah, real is a sloppy word because we contrast things like real and unreal. Actual is very obvious and clear. I think it's more precise. No, all experiential, call them experiential images or experiential quality gestalts or whatever you want, are actual. But what they are is actual presence of transcendence as experiential qualities. And that's all it is here. So everything that's showing up is like it's like a holograph projected from nowhere. So it's a real holograph, but it's not anything that's actually here, and it's not projected from somewhere in particular. There's no center somewhere where it's all coming from. And it's not literally that, but it's like that. It's not that it's like that, but thinking of it like that is a way of seeing it radically differently than you may be used to holding it as being. It's like really actually here in some concrete, stable way. I mean, you could look at the way physicists do. Everything is like a virtual quantum, wavefront of probabilities, instantaneous probabilities. If you can wrap your head around that, that's nicely disorienting.
Yeah. It's really hard to shape that way of looking at things.
Sure. Yeah, but that's why I recommend you don't shake it. Don't solve the problem of seeing things badly. Just go somewhere in your experience where you don't.
Like I can understand, physicist theory.
Uh-huh.
That I can go there.
Uh-huh. Sure.
But in other ways, it's hard to.
Sure. Well, don't worry about shaking it. Just go somewhere in your experience where it's not like that. Like, meditate or go to sleep or something. When you're in deep sleep, where's the problem with objects? Yeah, and yet you're there. That's real. You're there. Of course you don't. You don't know where you are now either, any more than you do in deep sleep. But you think you do. You think you do. And that's the curse of the waking state. Deep sleep state has several advantages because it's more obvious the way things really are. You don't know if you are. You don't even know that you are. You don't know what is, but it's not nothing. And that's a pretty precise statement of what's going on here.
But you don't even remember it. Or
Sure.
You
And
wake up and it's like.
But you don't remember here.
Like
You just pretend to remember it. Yeah. But
What's the disadvantage of the awake state?
you think you know what it is. You think it's something that's actually here. Deep sleep has the advantage that it's obvious you're clueless. You're equally clueless here now, but you may or may not know it. You may think you have a handle on things, which is not the case.
But during deep sleep, you don't realize that you're clueless.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was joking and calling that a disadvantage.
That's why I feel so good.
Yeah, of course.
But if you really look at it, all the vagueness that attends the dream, that when you're sleeping is really here.
Yes. This is not hidden. If you look at experience, it clearly reveals what it is. It clearly reveals how slippery it is, how strange it is, how multidimensional it is. Nothing has any stability. Nothing has any permanence. Nothing stays the same. You can't have the same experience twice. You see someone, you're never going to see them again exactly that same way, ever. Can't happen. The light will be different, the angle will be different, your mood will be different, everything will be different. And experience is like that. It's continually just this instantaneous virtual scenario that's like gone as soon as it happens, and it's already something else, and it's already something else, and it's already something else, and it never repeats. And it's just like a dream.
And this fake reality is not trying to cover it, obviously.
Yeah. But you do see it. But you see it and you don't. However much of you is absorbed in constructing a mental version of things, worldview, even that's a partial experience that is taking place in a context that's vastly wider than that. The part of you that's in deep sleep is right here, right now. Right now, you're in deep sleep, even as you're in the waking condition. But the deep sleep, you have to kind of go to where it is to notice it. So if you look in your experience, just sort of, just head out that way or any which way until there's nothing happening, and all of a sudden you'll find, oh, that's what deep sleep is. And I'm there, and you're there. You're everywhere. There's nowhere in your experience that you're not, just as much as you're here.
I think there might be a final stage that I call real magic. Like in a lucid dream, you couldn't manipulate the events, and then in that real magic, I call it, in the waking state, kind of having seen through what you previously thought things were, that there's a way to really change them. Just like in a lucid dream, the dream can be changed, and in the real magic in the waking state, then the events can be changed similarly.
Sure, except changed is not a good way to put it. Events can be participated with non-linearly and irrationally. That's called through in non-causal means. And that's what we're doing here. What we're doing here makes absolutely no sense. But something's happening. It's not nothing.
And we don't call it magic because we're used to it.
You can call it magic. I used to call it magic for a long time.
But it's the same thing as magic.
Sure. It's magic.
It's just within a certain limit of experience that we're used to.
Yes.
Would the same thing happen if nobody questioned and nobody noticed? Wouldn't it?
When you say the same thing, what do you mean?
Whatever's going to happen.
Of course. This is doing itself infallibly,
Right.
and with inconceivable perfection.
Right.
And that it looks like, oh, we're questioning and we're doing these things and we're doing this exploration. That's all bullshit.
Right.
That's being done. It just happens to look like that, not as a result of our activities. It's just it's unstoppable. It can't not be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Helen. Yes, I didn't see it.
Well, talking about the magic, I start noticing something. When I have time, I would rub my hand with a little physical therapy something.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I saw it is happening on its own.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like that I'm directing my hand. It's just a magic happening.
Sure.
And at first, I thought it was weird. Because normally I was thinking that I was operating my hands but do certain things. But it is happening completely on its own. And has its own intelligence or whatever. And then I started noticing that when I walk, normally I would think that I walk, right? I direct the walk. But the reality is the walk is happening on its own.
Yeah, everything happens on its own.
Yeah, and I don't really know what happened there. But I can have all the sensations. The hands, happens in nowhere. I don't know where the space. Yeah. And the sound also happening in space.
Yeah.
And I have nothing to do with it.
It's always been like that. And it's possible to notice. It's possible to notice that that's the case, and then you get, oh yeah, the radiance does everything.
It is magic.
It's total magic. Literally.
Well, we hear you say about you are not doing you. If you've been done, and you're not doing your own digesting, you are not doing your own healing or whatever. But by hearing you say, it's one thing. But experiencing it is a completely different thing.
Absolutely, but then that's the important thing. The important thing is not what I say. The important thing is to see. Right. See for yourself. What I say doesn't matter at all. Who cares what I say? People can say all kinds of bullshit. But the important thing is to see the actuality of what's going on in your experience. It's actuality is powerful.
I think that overall daily experience is kind of the flavor is different. I can't really say what it is.
Oh yeah, it changes. It changes. Yeah, it morphs, continues to change.
Sometimes it feels so sensitive to certain things, dealing with people and the daily life, and you feel there's more energy inside of the verbal thing.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it feels kind of annoying.
No, psychic functioning, to call it arbitrarily, increases, or you're noticing a psychic functioning increases enormously as unfoldment progresses. There's a profound, when any systems you're dealing with, there's a profound and powerful psychic direct energy interaction, which is It's interaction, it's communication, it's participation in all kinds of ways, all sorts of dimensions that happen. And it's always like that. It's like that for everyone. And but as unfoldment progresses, one comes to notice this and open to it much more.
One night I was waking up by the pain in the arm, and then as soon as I woke up, the thinking process starts. Then I decide to look into it, and just literally, visually look into it. And instead of just looking at the sparkling and the clear light, I pinpoint into one specific area and just go in and in. It's infinite.
Yes. It's wonderful. Eh?
Yeah, and then I decided to look at the pain, and it's in this space, and it's hanging there, and it's not pain. It's just this energy. I can't pinpoint what it is. It just keep unfolding. Yeah. And then the ear starting hearing things, right? The internal or outside, but it's all within the space, and it's just endless unfolding. It's like it's so unsettling. There's nowhere you can settle.
Nowhere.
But there's nothing but just keep happening. Nothing on its own. Nothing is on the way of others, like you described.
Right.
But it's constantly everywhere.
Yes.
Just like the whole world keep unfolding.
Yeah. Exactly. Well put. Bravo. You come sit here.
Oh.
That's how it is right now.
That's right. Yeah.
So I just realized right now that yesterday I was taking a walk with a friend, and when I usually go outside, because I have this all the sensory information coming, new visual stimulation, as well as just other sensory things that can't be qualified, right?
Sure.
And so all the sensory information is coming in. I was walking with a friend yesterday, and I realized, because normally when I go outside, I feel immediately overstimulated, and all of a sudden I was not. And I just realized right now, overstimulation is actually, there's a subtle assumption that I can only take in so much.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And that, so there's, you can take it all in. So there's overstimulation.
That's right. You actually are as transparent. There's absolutely no limit to how much, let's say, call it how much energy can shine through. You notice as unfoldment progresses, things that would previously have been a sensory overload, like explosions or loud noises or car crashes or anything, bright lights, intensely bright lights, looking into the sun, things like that, are absolutely nothing. It's not any difference because you no longer you're calibrated to just absolute transparency, and so anything that shows up it's all the same. Yeah.
It's all being taken in anyway, though.
Yeah, of course it is. Of course it is.
But I hadn't seen through that subtle assumption that there's a certain amount that can be contained in this, experience.
Yeah. That's good. That's very good. To feel the open, the space of your being is infinitely open. It's vast. It's infinitely vast, and vaster than that, and vaster than that, and vaster than that forever. So there's absolutely no limits. Absolutely no limits.
And then so you sort of notice a million things going on at the same time, and it's okay. It's totally okay.
Mm-hmm. And we are, if you could, it's a joke to talk about, but the quantity of information that's in your experience in the present moment is absolutely infinitely countless. How many, you can't even talk about it. It's laughable, but what quantities of sounds are present? What quantities of vision are present? What quantities of sensation are present? What quantities of thought are? It's like, it's infinite. More than more.
Yeah.
And it's always like that. It's always been that.
It always has. Yes.
It's just always, infinity is not an abstract concept. Infinity is an actuality.
And just because it kept getting more sensitive and more sensitive and more sensitive and more sensitive.
Yeah.
And that caused, overload and integration and all that kinds of
things were going on. And then now it's like, I notice them now more than I've ever noticed before, when a lot less was overwhelming.
Yeah. That's cool.
What?
What?
35.
Yeah.
Question. Oh, yes. When you were talking about your earlier life, when you were looking around and seeing the craziness in the world.
Yeah.
Have you noticed a change in general since then as to the depth of the belief or what's going on with the people who don't notice?
You mean?
Change over time? Have you noticed anything?
I would say generalizations are impossible because everyone is, it's tempting to talk about, the masses of people or the common denominator or something, but it's impossible because everyone's unique. Everyone's is a law unto themselves, and so it's impossible to generalize.
Impossible.
Yeah, I think you can certainly see a lot of good symptoms if you want to sort of talk sociologically, as internet and media becomes more ubiquitous and more controlled. People are, maybe arguably amenable to a more heavy-handed kind of a manipulation in terms of their psychological manipulation of what they consider normal and what the self-images they try to approximate to, and so on. But it's always been like that. It's just a difference of degree, not really a difference in kind.
That's kind of a change in fashion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's hard. I couldn't answer that because, again, it's an individual thing. Talking about groups is impossible because groups are you're the only one here, and you're the only one here, and you're the only one here, and I'm the only one here. So how can we talk about us? Because we're each unique and we each have a unique take on things. We're each in a completely different place with completely different, I think there's a lot of assumption of commonality because we use the same words to describe the same thing. So I might say, I think such and such and such and such string of words, and you might agree, but you're not agreeing to what I'm really thinking. You're agreeing to the words that I'm using to express it. And so we're showing these different, we're saying things and other people are saying the same things, and we assume that because of that we're actually talking about the same thing, but that's not necessarily true.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but there is something.
I'm sorry?
When it's the same thing. There is a kind of recognition.
Maybe. But even that recognition is subjective, it's personal.
I'll have to meditate on that.
Should we break for lunch? Let's try and be 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and we can I think we can go till 3-ish or 3 today, or.
Yeah, sure.
And so we can still get in a good several hours after lunch. So have a nice little bit of downtime. Online people will be back in about 45 minutes. I'll leave the video on. Well, we could talk about direct energy engagement. That's always a good thing to talk about. I call it direct energy engagement, but of course, as with anything that you put into words, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt and translate it. Anyway, direct energy engagement is very interesting because you can notice that everything that happens, experience is by direct energy engagement. There's no intermediary whatsoever. So, vision is absolute direct engagement with the energy that's showing up as light, with the energy that's consciousness or whatever. I mean, right, you can't actually pin down what these things are, but that's the point. Thought is the direct engagement, the direct presence of thought, absolutely intimately engaged with the direct presence of consciousness, and so on and so forth. And so all experience whatsoever has no intermediary whatsoever. It's direct energy engagement. And what is being engaged with on both sides, so to speak, not that there's two sides, but is the same thing. It's absolute transcendental. You can't say what it is. You can't pin down what consciousness is, what's experiencing your experience. And likewise, you can't resolve ultimately and get to the bottom of what's being experienced. You can't tell this energy that's showing up as all these experiential qualities is completely unresolvable. It's actual, but you can't get to the bottom of what it is. When you look into it, it just is weirder and weirder and weirder and more subtle. And the same thing, you look into consciousness. We've all, who am I and all this kinds of things, do meditations, try and find what's seeing your experience. It's just endlessly weird. You can't get, it's not nothing, it's actual, but it's so subtle and so strange and so multidimensional. So all experience is direct energy engagement. All experience is actually that. All experience whatsoever is the engagement of the transcendental with itself. Now, all functioning also consists of direct energy engagement. When you feel like you're doing something, you feel like you're going to go drive somewhere and you walk out to your car and you get in and you drive off. How does that happen? Every step of the way of what happens with that is direct energy engagement. There's no intermediary, there's no process. Even if you seem to be thinking about something, the thought itself is direct energy engagement. So everything is direct energy engagement. And again, direct energy engagement is intrinsically transcendental. You go look for the energy that's showing up. It's like, here's light. Your field of vision is full of light, completely normal, just like always, right? Let's say. And yet you look, what is this light? What is this stuff that's showing up? Well, it's weird, isn't it? It's subtle. It's amazing. It's completely actual. It's self-evident. It's obvious. But what is it? What is life? What is thought? What is sensation? And you go looking at these things intimately, very carefully. You find a lot. You find a whole lot, but it never resolves. It doesn't ever converge. The simple idea is, well, the closer you look at something, the more it should converge on what it really is, right? Like you just keep looking and you get to the bottom of it. But it's not like that. This stuff is the opposite of that. The closer you look, the more it diverges, the more it spreads out. You look at what anything is, and it turns out to be really just a whole vast field. And you look at any portion of that, and that opens up into a whole vast field. And you look at any portion of that, and that opens up. So reality is the nature of what's actually here, the nature of what I call the radiance is it's divergent. It doesn't converge. It doesn't come together into anything. On the contrary, it opens up into, it's not nothing, but it doesn't come together. It's not coherent. It doesn't come together into any essence that you can find, anything you can get to the bottom of. And that's the same anywhere you look. You look at consciousness, you find the same thing. You look at, energy of characteristics like light or sound or something, you find the same thing. Anywhere you look in experience, you find this strange phenomena of just infinite divergence. It just keeps spreading out and becoming more and more open and more dimensions and more aspects. And that's what this is. But everything, in the most concrete sense, this is not an abstraction I'm talking about, just the real intimate concrete fact of your experience right here, right now. Every bit of it is absolute direct energy engagement. There's no extra mechanism, there's no process, there's no intermediary. It's just, it's absolute, intimate, completely direct energy engagement of experiential energy, call it experiential characteristics, with, call it consciousness. And again, you can talk about consciousness or awareness or something, but These are all just empty assertions because you can't find consciousness. You can't find any awareness. They're self-evident that something that's doing something like that is actual, but it's not a thing. It's not anything. It's not. You can't find it as a specific thing. Just like what's showing up is actual, but you can't find it as any specific thing. And so this is very, very powerful because this quality of unfindability is transcendence. And transcendentality, transcendence is actual. It's not an abstraction. It's not theoretically it's transcendental. Like, what does that mean? But it's literally, concretely, actually transcendental. You go looking for it, you can't find it. It's right here, but you can't find it. I mean, how weird is that? And every aspect of this actuality, of the presence of your experience, presence of your field of experience is like that. And I mean, don't just listen to me say it, check it out for yourself. Look at this stuff, look at it real intimately. And it's not even subtle, it's like blatantly obvious that it is that way. And this is very concrete. This is not theory or philosophy. It's really explicit, discovery for yourself that there's some really weird shit going on here. Technical terms.
I got you when you're saying when you look at an object or something, then it's like divergence, and then towards the end, I kind of got lost when you said transcendental when you look at yourself.
It's just another way of saying the same thing.
Okay. And were you saying
it transcends being anything.
Okay.
It seems to be something, but then you look closely, you don't actually find anything.
And were you saying when you look at yourself, that's what happens to you?
Same, yeah. Anywhere you look. I mean, look at try and find consciousness. You find the same thing if you try and find light, or try and find sound, or try and find a sensation or something. It's there. It's obviously actual, but you can't get to the bottom of it. You can't put your finger on it. You can't resolve it into any wholeness.
And when two people look at each other, that's direct energy exchange. But when one person is not looking at the other one person is looking at something else, then that person is direct energy exchange with whatever they're focusing on.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Not the person that's focusing on her.
Yeah, totally. Because when you see someone else, it's about you, not about them. I mean, they're seeing you as about them, not about you. It seems like it's a mutual thing, and it feels mutual, but it isn't really. And you can think about that because you can have very intimate interactions with people in your dreams, right? Very intimate, and there's no one here. But it can be profound and meaningful, and really, deep connections. And there's no one here. And it's just like that in the awakening.
So when you have, when you're married for 30 years, you're not really married with the person, you're married with your idea of the person you're married with.
You're married with your karma, and they're married with their karma. And you happen to be a major character in their karma, and vice versa. That's I suppose. Right? But all your life consists of you dancing with your karma. You're dancing with your own energy patterns, and everything that shows up in your life is appropriate for what you need to dance, what you need. That's why people's lives are so different. Because people find themselves in the patterns that they need to work with, and just in terms of their process.
When you use the word karma,
Mm-hmm.
tell me how you use the word karma.
Just a apparent meaningful pattern.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be past life or anything. It just be like this current life and do the now.
Whatever it is, it's all the same. It's the same whether it's past or present, or who knows what past or present means anyway, But the meaningfulness of the patterning of energy that seems to show up. I mean, this isn't just random flashes, right? It has all these very concrete shapes, and seems to be people and objects and all that have all sorts of meaningfulness that we can interact with, like this very elaborate game structure, right? And that meaningfulness is your karma. And like in a dream there's nothing there at all, and yet the consciousness effortlessly creates that. because it works, it's still working with its karma. So in a dream, you have all sorts of meaningful interaction with all sorts of things that aren't there. These patterns show up, and they seem to be meaningful entities or meaningful, patternings in some sense. And then, there's a direct engagement, an interaction with all this stuff, and that's your process of life. Your process of becoming what you're becoming. And that happens in the waking condition or the sleep condition or any condition. It's always the same thing. Even when you're in deep sleep, you're dancing with your karma just in more subtle ways. So it doesn't form gross shapes. But it's still subtle flavors and subtle energies and moods and all that are wafting through.
With direct energy exchange, can you do like a telekinesis, can like move things?
It's possible. You can't do it because you can't do anything. Everything happens on its own. But these things can happen. I've experienced these things.
You've moved okay.
No, but I've seen it done. I mean, I know that yeah, sure, that can happen. But when it happens, it doesn't happen because someone did it. But then nothing happens because someone did it. Everything happens just because it happens. Why is that particular cloud in the sky? Why am I holding my right hand up at this moment? Why am I thinking, why is this thought in my head at the moment? Why do I feel the particular sensation I feel in my knee at the moment? I didn't put it there. I'm not doing it. It's just there. It's just being done. Everything is done. Nothing is. It seems like we're doing things, but it's not really that way.
It's being done because there was no past for us to do it, because it's all happening like at the present moment.
Well, I wouldn't say because, but sure. You have to look at the way phenomena appear. Any action consists of conditions appearing. Like say you're thinking a thought. That means that the thoughts are appearing in your consciousness at that instant, right? What put them there? Did you put them? Did you reach somewhere and find thoughts and pick them and put them in your consciousness, or did you plan to think what you're thinking before you think it? Like in 5 minutes, I'm going to be thinking about something. It's not like that, is it? It just happens. It's just like that's the thoughts that are there, right? And it sort of seems as if maybe it's coherent and kind of follows a line of logic and has a narration to it. But if you look at how it really happens, it's not like that. It just appears. Like the clouds in the sky just appear. No one's putting the clouds there. No one's doing the clouds. They're just, there they are. What's doing this? Why are you you? Did you decide to be you? Did you decide to feel the way you feel? Did you decide to think the things you think? It's just poof. It just shows up. It's just there. If someone that's a musician, why are they a musician? Did they decide to be musical, to have the talent, to have the desire to do that? It's just there. Or someone is not musical. Did they decide to not be musical? It's just there. It just shows up there.
And if we look at life that way, then we can be sensitive to it rather than taking it for granted that this is going to be a certain way, this is going to be a certain way. Nothing has to be a certain anyway. Everything is just literally happening. So
everything is happening, and it's open-ended because you can't pin down exactly what is happening. You can't say what anything. You got to get to the bottom of what anything is. Because everything that's happening exactly as it is, when you go looking at what anything is, you can't resolve it. It doesn't come together in coherence, like we were talking about just now. So everything is happening just the way it is, but none of it is anything in particular. None of it, you can't say what anything is.
That's why nobody can make sense out of the universe.
Yes, because it doesn't make any fucking sense.
That's why they can try to fake the equations and
yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. I mean, people, life is confusing as hell, and the normal human response is, oh, that's a big problem. How about it's just confusing because it's confusing? It's confusing because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, what a load off. It's like, oh, thank goodness, don't need to try and sort it out because it doesn't make any sense. It just happens to be the way it is.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if you could follow what happens and appreciate it and always look at what's occurring?
Well, how about it?
With appreciation.
Well, how about it? Why not?
I can't do that. I just think it would be lovely.
Well, how do you know you can't? You just do it anyway. Maybe you are doing it and you're just telling yourself you're not doing it.
That's what.
Maybe you are enjoying everything. I mean, the sound of that airplane is like, how cool is that? And how weird. It's like art. It's like everything is like performance art. All these just amazing textures and qualities and flavors and just weird. Like what? You know, what's the sound of an airplane? What? It's just like it's amazing.
Would you like a little cola?
No, I'm okay for now. Thank you. Thanks for offering. Any other takers? I got a big bag.
What's a Cola?
Oh, it's for coughing.
It's a cough drop.
I'm looking for something stronger.
He's not really coughing in. Peter Pan.
So when you look, focus the divergence that you described.
Uh-huh.
You know, the same thing happens with the physicists.
Absolutely.
Nobody knows what electricity is or what matter is.
Of course.
So this is going to sound like asking your genie for more wishes. Can you turn that around and instead of, I mean, what's the opposite of focusing and experiencing the divergence?
Opposite?
Is there a different direction? Is there a pullback?
No. There isn't. All you can find is divergence, and the only way to go anywhere else is to imagine it, to pretend it's there. I mean, that's what we do. And a normal human functioning, we pretend that there is coherence in things in the face of the manifest fact that there isn't. We pretend things make sense, and we pretend we have a handle on things in the face of the fact that we don't. It's just pure bravado. Or, a more cynical person might say arrogance. I mean, no one knows what's going on. I mean, look at the facts. When you're little an infant, you're 4 months old, and you don't know what anything is. It's just here it is, and wow, amazing. You're just like lost in this incredible, weird, just bombardment of, and nothing ever changed. We learn a lot of fancy words. We learn a lot of descriptions. We learn to play a lot of intricate games of call and response. Someone can ask a question and you can answer it, and so you can create a veneer of competence and knowledge. But all you know is how to throw words around. You don't know what the words actually mean. No one knows like you say, physicists don't know what electricity is. We can say, oh yeah, it's electricity. This computer works by electricity. And it works because it has a CPU, which is an elaborate integration. I mean, blah, 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 bullshit. You can talk the talk, but it's all just hot air.
So what you really mean is that nothing essential has changed, or nothing
intellectual
or mental has changed.
Nothing.
The body grows. We learn how to feed ourselves.
Well, there is change. There is the energy system goes through the trajectory of its lifespan. For sure, of course, obviously, there is, continual change, but there's never been coherence, and we had direct knowledge of that fact when we were infants, and it's easy to forget that fact because of all the intricate pretense we learned, we were indoctrinated in being able to participate in terms of human interaction and being verbal and conceptual and all that stuff, but it's all just a game. It never actually ties into anything essential. and yet you can note, and that's okay. That's not a problem. It's just a fact. But it's easy to notice that fact because it's completely obvious if you get honest. No one knows what anything is. I don't know what anything is. No one knows. How can you know what anything is? It's too weird.
Well, in the miracle, at least at one level, is that we have these conversations, and it's not as though you're speaking French and I'm speaking Greek or something.
Absolutely, because
There is something that is in common.
well, it's yes, but it's more profound than that, because this is not about conceptual knowledge. This is not about knowing what things are conceptually or having or finding coherence. This is again about direct energy engagement. And the energy is incoherent, so it doesn't need to be coherent to be meaningful, to be powerful. So communication is a function of intelligence. Intelligence, being real, is incoherent and powerful. And you can't know what it is, but it's actual and it's in effect. So you are an intelligent, let's call you an intelligent transcendental energy field. I don't know what, I'm just making up words here, right? And because you are that, you have capability, you have functional capabilities that include communication, that include meaningful interaction, so on and so forth. And so even though everything we're doing here is complete bullshit and a sham, nonetheless, there can be genuine, meaningful, profound interaction, such as it is, and whatever that is, because it's also real. It's also direct energy engagement. You're really you, and I'm really me, and that fact has implications. It has aspects. It has potentialities. It has functionalities. No, you can't say what they are. You can't pin it down, but that doesn't make it non-existent. It's actual. So it's kind of schizophrenic. On the one hand, there's the common sense narration of what's happening, and there's what's actually happening, and they're completely two different things. But the situation consists of, they coexist in this situation. Yes, we're sitting here and we're having a talk. We're sitting in the living room in this house in Los Angeles and we're having a talk. I'm giving a lecture and we're having a discussion and question and answer, and we had a nice lunch. There's that story, and then there's what's really happening, which who can say? But it's not nothing. It's genuine. It's actual, and that's the important part. Yeah.
I'm see if I can improvise this question. As you say, if you get a little more sensitive, you also get more sensitive about our foibles and the woods get bigger.
Sure.
And also that everything I've ever understood what you said is not a matter of gaining real estate. It's more of a matter of sort of more of a free fall.
Yeah.
And so there's really no arriving. Really means just free fall, just getting sort of pushed off the cliff. And I'm just wondering how. I guess maybe it doesn't matter how it was for you. How'd you gauge that? Okay, I'm really good. I've got this. I can share this stuff now. I mean, I just don't know what the signposts are for. Not that I'm looking for that. I'm just not sure what the signposts of where anything's at.
Well, I'm not either. I mean, I'm not sure what your question is exactly.
How do you get on that? Well,
you're asking me why I'm up here talking instead of being at a movie?
No, I don't want to. What? Instead of what?
Instead of being at a movie or out at the bar drinking?
I guess so. Yeah, sure. Yeah, why?
I don't know. It's my nature. It's my path.
There's sort of a confidence. How about you have that kind of a confidence in something that.
Well, the confidence is from prolonged and very deep intimacy with this, which shows up as ever increasing clarity. It shows up as ever increasing clarity. I mean, I'm not talking about anything I know. I'm describing something I see. It's like if I asked you to tell me what's outside that window, you could look and just tell me. Not because you need to know or remember it. It's not. You're not reciting something you have memorized or assimilated. You just are like, well, there's some bushes and a tree and a roof across the way and a wall. You're just looking and seeing, and that's what I'm doing. I look at what's here, and I describe it, and everything I say is basically exactly that. So I don't know anything. It's not like I've remembered. I do. I mean, I've read a lot of books and know a lot of terminology and stuff, but it's all a lot of hogwash, so I don't care about that so much. But what I talk about is what I see. Literally, it's like describing what I see outside a window. And I talk about it with confidence because I'm really seeing it. And so I'm telling you what I see. Yeah. That's all. It's only confidence is, this is what I really see, I can't prove it, but it happens to be the case.
Just to piggyback this idea of free fall.
Uh-huh.
And
it's a good idea, as ideas go.
Yes, this concept, this experience. You don't, you no longer, well, do you experience yourself as in free fall? Well, let me be more honest with you. I have very recently described to somebody that I haven't seen the movie Gravity, but I felt like I was just out there and the cord had been cut. You don't seem to be in that place. Okay, so you've gotten acclimated. You don't seem to be bothered by that.
Right, I'm definitely not bothered by it.
Well, we know that, but there is a point when you're suddenly not bothered, or it just doesn't matter whether you're bothered or not, or fuck being bothered. I mean,
it's a matter of getting your sea legs. It's familiarity. If you find yourself in deep space all of a sudden, at first it's really weird because you're not used to being in deep space. But if you've been in deep space as far as you can remember, then it's you sort of know the ropes. I'm not sure that's exactly what you're asking.
Yeah, it kind of is.
I mean, familiarity develops. Yeah, it's like riding a bicycle, exactly. First you fall off, and then the very first time you get up and you don't fall, you go, oh wow, look at this, it's incredible, I can't believe I'm doing this, the bicycle's not falling. And now you just get on the bicycle and ride it, and who cares?
So it's just deep space.
Sure. And in retrospect, deep space turns out to be where you always were. You just thought you were somewhere else through a kind of a psychosis. And it turns out what you are is actually quite naturally adopted to being in deep space because that's what you happen to be. And all of this sort of comes together and becomes more and more clear and obvious just through, through experience.
And the seeing versus the knowing, you're not, you were saying before, you're not telling us what you know, you're telling us what you see. Say like you're in a hole and you're like, you're not going by knowledge, you're going by, hey guys, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
This is, and so you're at the same time you're talking to us, you're in it right now, and you're just saying what it is right.
Yeah, because seeing is the only real knowledge.
And experiencing.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Which is the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is experiencing the seeing or feeling, which are synonymous with.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's the point. Is what this actually is plain to see. It's not hidden. It's not concealed. And if the way I describe it sounds unusual from the way relative to the way most people or many people would describe this, check out why that is. And the main reason why is because people are fucking nuts. They're insane. And it's an institutionalized, or let's just say not institutionalized so much as constitutional insanity that all humans seem to go into as they develop and become enculturated as children. But it's not it's not a dead end. You're not actually stuck in that, because that all this enculturation and craziness is a partial overlay over what you really are, which you never stopped being, which is just this amazing thing that just happens to be here that is clueless. And it's just a matter of acknowledging the actuality of that and feel what that feels like and see where you are, because you're clueless, but you're not powerless. You have potentiality, you have capabilities, you have intelligence, you have functionality. Direct energy engagement is not just mechanical. It's intensely intelligent and meaningful. It's purposeful. And you are this meaningfulness, you are this purposefulness, and it has always been running the show in every detail of your being, and always will be running the show. And you can notice this too, and participate in this intelligence, in this meaningfulness and purposefulness. It doesn't make any sense. You can't say, it's like you can say, oh, my purpose is blah, blah, blah. It's not like that. But nonetheless, it is purposeful, it is meaningful, it is intelligent.
I have a question. Sure. So the psychosis you were just talking about, which is the thing that is the confusion that we're trying to cure ourselves of.
Yeah.
I think it's an accurate term, but I also have a sense that in a way that kind of over demonizes or over mystifies it, in the sense that it's also that psychosis is also it's functional, as I was saying before, in a certain way. It's the thing that allows us to have subjectivity, to be able to use language, to be able to have this
yes and no.
To individuate in the first place. It seems to be the mechanism that is employed.
Yeah, you could say all that, and I would argue with it. But what I would add to that is that it's actually a relatively small thing, and the problem isn't that it's there, and the problem isn't that not that it's useful. Sure, it's useful in being what it is, but that it makes people lose. The craziness is people lose perspective. People think that's everything, and it's actually a very small thing. And what's really
it's way overemphasized.
Exactly, it's like an iceberg.
Built into
exactly.
The system, it seems like.
It's a small portion of our functioning, and the vast portion of our functioning is this crazy, irrational, direct energy engagement. Yeah. And artists and creative people and people that are a little more edgy know this intuitively or to various degrees of explicitness. But this is what we're talking about: is finding the true proportion of what's present and not overemphasizing the rational side, the conscious mind. The unconscious mind, which is the bulk of your consciousness, intelligence, whatever you want to call it, is real, is here, and it's you. And it's where the juice is. It's where the magic is. And it's a whole other way of looking at what we're dealing with. This spirituality, this coming to recognize what's going on, really means coming to notice the unconscious mind, coming to notice our irrational being as it actually is, which is where the life force is and what the life force is engaged in. What I call indirect energy engagement. That's its mode. Its whole mode is, Yeah.
Yeah, the word free fall got me, and
it's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, and karma, because the past several weeks, and I realized for me, the karma pattern, there's a storyline that I've been repeating, and then this free fall, what I'm finding is I can't find consciousness, but I definitely know when I'm not present because it hurts. It's uncomfortable. So even this morning I was following a judgmental thought, and then I just focused at the feel of the water, washing the ditch, and that judgmental thought was gone.
That's it. See, that's a perfect illustration of how to get outside of it. You don't even need it. It's not like you need to fix the thoughts. Mm-hmm. Just go somewhere else, and it falls into proportion. It ceases to matter. It ceases to be particularly relevant.
Yeah, and then what was happening? I kept following this.
No passing notes in class, girls.
I kept following this emotion that keeps coming up, and then I went into my landlady's and I just burst out crying and shared something, and it was way from the past. So I allowed
feelings to come up and noticed a lot of my back pain had dissipated the next day. And then, I've always had this tape in my head, oh, the bosses don't understand, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the other day, I was told by my boss I need to not confront, just mention to somebody that she didn't follow through on a task I had asked her to do. And I had just started my shift, and she was almost finished. And I said, well, how come you didn't do this? And then she went off on me. And then when she left and we didn't get to say goodbye, and I called her to apologize because I realized I didn't even say hi, how are you? I did exactly what I was resenting other people for, like a pattern. And now it turned into a beautiful thing because then yesterday we talked and I was like, I am so sorry because I did what I never wanted a boss to do. And I am learning as I step up into this role that I need to acknowledge how wonderful you are and all the work you do. And yes, of course you're going to be tired in that one thing. And I just need to start owning up to my responsibility and it turned into an appreciation of both of us. But that thought pattern and that free fall is, you talk about your past, I don't even know who I was because that person, that's a stranger. Lately I've been kind of floaty. I don't know if whoa, what's going on? And even here, I was okay out there, but it's just and I just need to allow this energy that what's going on. It's like, whoa. But now I realize the fear of the spaciousness and the free fall is just to deal with it rather than hold on to a negative thought or a judgment. To ground myself in what I have always thought is my reality of judgment, shame, or I'm not worthy on this planet. It's just and if there's fear coming up, allow the fear, but also the joy of this, Matterhorn ride at Disneyland, woo! And that's what the pre-fall, and the whole thing with these words, I was standing at the light, walking from parking my car at work, and someone was talking in another language. I said, wow, I don't understand what this person's saying, and I can make a judgment. And I said, that's even in English. We never know what we're saying. But imagine, even in, New York, you got Tutsi Rajit, and they understand. I'm like, what? Even the English language can be bastardized. And it's but the brilliance and the miracle of having all these dialects and languages and bird speak, and then to know that they even came up, and I don't understand it, with another particle to explain reality called the Doppelton. And it's like scientists, this is it, and it's not it. It's like, okay, that's your explanation, it's bitching, and I have no answers, and it's the free fall, it's scary, but it's also that karmic pattern, and it's coming quicker, and it gets real uncomfortable quicker. It's like, oh, I can't hold on to that.
But as you become more accustomed to the free fall, to being in that mode, or not clinging to fighting it, you begin to discover, at first it's scary and it's unpredictable and all of that, but it's also juicy, and it's also powerful. It has things can come together in that mode. It's sort of random access. There's inspiration there. There's a lot of joy there too. We're sort of our more immature mode is to cling to structure. It's really important for me to have a handle on things, to know who I am, to know what's going on, and we sort of, we really resist and cringe and are really threatened by and scared of just letting go in any sense, letting go into not knowing, letting go into not having control, letting go into letting ourselves spontaneously be different ways, let things out, be honest, all these kinds of things. But again, when we begin to actually find ourselves experiencing these things, we discover that it's not so bad, and it's actually kind of good, in a lot of ways. And it's juicy, it's nourishing, and ultimately it's more integrative too. It's more whole, it's more real, and ultimately it seduces you. It draws you into itself. So far from needing to let go into it, on the contrary, you get to a certain point and it just, like a sea monster, it just grabs you and drags you down, and you're gone. In a good way.
Yeah.
question, you're talking about the direct engagement.
Yes.
And before someone was talking about anger.
Mhm.
If anger arises, wouldn't direct engagement with the anger be to just feel what's here in this moment, feel the anger,
Absolutely.
experiencing it, as opposed to going somewhere, I'm not sure what you meant by it, talked about language, going somewhere else, which could be, oh, I don't want to feel that, I'm going to think about unicorns and flowers.
Well, first of all, the appearance of the energy of the anger is already direct energy engagement. So it's not so much your response to it or what to do about it is a sort of as a secondary aspect. So that the anger is there already is direct energy engagement. When you see that the anger is direct energy engagement, it stops being anger. It becomes multidimensional energy. It becomes vitality. It's like, woof, here I am, bang, you know? And when you have a narration or, oh, I'm pissed off about such and such. But when it's not that, when you're just with the energy itself, as the energy, it's just this amazing, you know, explosion or waterfall or rainbow of just all this like energy, all this sort of fire. And it's you know, like any energy, it finds its channel, it finds its way of release. Like water finds, you know, like water following gravity and finding the ocean or electricity finding ground and all these kinds of things. You know, or they can go somewhere else. You know, the point is that there's unlimited ways of being with this condition, and it doesn't matter how you do it. It doesn't matter whether you're with your experience here or with your experience here or with your experience here. And if you have mobility, if you have a choice, you can pick whichever's convenient for you. You know, if you're angry, and if you feel angry and you want to be with the anger, be with the anger. If you're feeling angry and you want to look at it, look at it. If you're feeling angry and you want to duck it, duck it. You know, it doesn't matter because you have the options. It's kind of like you walk into this room and you can sit anywhere. You can sit over here, you can sit over here, you can sit over here, or you can just leave the room. Who cares, right? And so it just becomes a matter of you know, playing to your convenience or to your best inspiration of what's the preferred way of being with the current panorama. And nothing is a problem. The only problem is not seeing what anything is. So anger is not a problem. Strong emotion is not a problem. You know, even destructive urges are not a problem. The problem is mistaking them, is not seeing them what they are. The absolute master solution for everything is to see what it is, which is always possible because you always are already seeing what it is. Not seeing what it is value added. It's an overlay. Everything is what it is, and you're seeing what it is. And if there's a misinterpretation, it's being added on top of that. It's an extra layer of imposition that has to be added actively in real time. So sort of seeing through that, letting yourself see that you're already seeing what it is in its raw form is the ultimate solution, the final solution. You don't need to solve anything, you just need to see everything. See, not solve. Yeah.
Well, you've probably heard of Sai Baba.
Of course. Which one?
India.
Well, there's two of them. So. Oh, the one, Mr. Vibhuti?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been to see him many times. I've seen him create all
Sure.
kinds of stuff with his hand.
Yeah.
And I know it's true most of the time. I don't believe towards the end of his life that it's necessarily he could do it anymore. I certainly didn't look upon him as God, and yet everybody screams and yells God and bows down at his feet.
Mm-hmm.
He gives him millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
What is that energy?
Which one?
Well, he creates them.
It's the same energy that's creating this.
How do you get that energy?
You have it. It's this. But he has it the way he has it. It manifests for you as the circumstances of your life and your functionality. It manifests for, let's say an opera prima donna as her life and her ability. It manifests as an Olympic athlete as their life and their ability. It manifests as a person who can, think and make things happen across the room as their life and their ability. But it's all the same energy, and the one isn't any better than the other.
The same energy.
Yeah. The important point is seeing this energy not being a show-off.
Then why do people worship him as God? Because he can do this.
It's a mutual collusion of being sucked into an absurd tradition. The Hindus have this whole long tradition of holy men, and so all the marks are really glad to be able to participate in the scene and have this great guy that they can say, oh, God is among us. And he's really glad because he's got people throwing money at him and sexual favors and God knows what else, right? So it's a win-win. Everyone's happy. They get to play this big game. But there's nothing better going on there than anywhere else, or for that matter, worse. It's just the same old, same old. It's the same thing as what's happening. Us sitting here chatting and moving our hands around is the same thing as him manifesting vibhuti and all these millions of people doing their silliness. My master was like that. He could do miracles. Yeah. Very, very, very impressive. Huh?
What did he do?
He could make things move without touching them. I saw him cause metal to bend, the Uri Geller trick and things like that. And he was quite psychic too. I've never been able to bend metal without working at it. A hammer helps. I am psychic.
But you don't have to be awake in order to create in the metal or anything.
No, it's irrelevant. and these kinds of phenomena are unimportant. They're not valuable in themselves. The only value they have is to illustrate that things are not necessarily what you think they are. Jesus walking on water, there's no particular value on walking on water, but it kind of puts the kibosh on your idea that you can't do it, right? It proves that that something else other than normalcy is going on. That's its only value, but intrinsically it's not valuable. In most spiritual traditions it said, don't chase after cities. Don't chase after powers. Don't try to cultivate powers. Not because it can't be done, but because it's a dead end. The only thing worth having is liberation. Powers are unimportant. If you get liberation and then powers, that's fine, but you won't care because you're liberated. And if you're not liberated, whether you have powers or not, you're still going to have a miserable life. I mean, not necessarily wholly miserable, but life is never wholly miserable for anyone. But, there's only one meaningful goal, such as it is, and that's liberation, which is nothing other than just seeing what this is, seeing self-realization, we call it, God-realization, one and the same. And anything other than that is just, at best, is just a distraction.
Because what we're all doing right now is a million times more amazing than any trick that we could think about, but we're just tending not to see it.
Well, yeah, the tricks are this. So why set them aside as special?
The biggest trick is that we've tricked ourselves into not seeing it.
You're not appreciating this act. This is the miracle right here. This is literally a miracle. This This is appearing out of nowhere. I mean, a handful of ash, screw that. Here's LA. Here's LA and all of you people and your body and your life and your history appearing out of nowhere. I mean, talk about showing off. Look at it. Look at it. Look at it. This is amazing. This is a miracle. You know, own up to it. Appreciate it. This is, if you want amazingness, you ain't going to find any more than this. That's literally the truth, you know, and that's what this is all about. Just notice what, and it's totally available because you already do notice it. You already are it. You know, it's not like you need to develop some superior capabilities to be capable, to be worthy or something. It's just get real, get honest. It's a reality check, you know. Here you are. That's like the big news. Here you are. You know, period. That's the most sacred sutra that's ever been said. Here you are. Look at what that really means. We're kind of approaching the slump in the day. Why don't we? Would you like to do a little exploration?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's do a little exploration. Do a little interdimensional voyaging.
It's not finished.
Hello, something I said.
So here you are. Feel the presence of your field of experience. It's right here, isn't it? Just like always. We're sitting here. This big bubble of your experience. Everything you're experiencing is within it, isn't it? Field of vision is appearing spontaneously, effortlessly, like always. Complete precision and clarity the way it always does. Field of hearing, presenting, just right here. It's just right here, like always, spontaneously. You don't need to do anything. Field of sensation, field of touch is here. Always full, always just full of tingles, every single portion of it. Field of taste, field of smell. Field of thought is here. There's thoughts, little subtle wisps of thought energies and sentences and whatever the way it is, just spontaneously, just showing up effortlessly. But just right here in your experience, isn't it? Now, notice how you're experiencing your experience by feel. Feel the presence of your sense of vision. Just feel it. Just feel what vision feels like. It's present. It's right here. It has a texture. Feel what vision is. Feel what light is. Feel it with your consciousness. Just feel what it feels like. It's real. It's actual. It's right here, right in your field of experience. Right? Feel what sound feels like. What is sound? What is sound energy? What is sound made of? Here it is. It's really here. It's really present. It's an actuality. What is it that's present? How do you know there's sound present? What is it that you're feeling when you hear sound? What is that? Just feel what it is. Don't think about it. You don't need to make sense of it. But you can feel it very precisely. Right? You can feel it very carefully, very intimately. Like you're exploring it by braille. Just feel what sound feels like. And sensation, sense of touch, a sense of the presence of everything that you feel by touch. The whole field is just full of all sorts of little subtle tingles and maybe some not so subtle tingles, right? Just feel that. What is that? What is it made of? What is it that's present? How do you know that you're feeling touch right now? What is it that's present that you're experiencing? What does it feel like? What's it made of? What is that energy? What is touch? And what is thought? Feel your field of thinking, your field of mind. What is thought? It's very subtle, isn't it? But it's not nothing. Something is there. You can tell you're thinking because something is present. Thought energy is present. What is that? What does it feel like? What's it made of? Actually feel your thinking. Feel it. What's it feel like? What's it made of? Your consciousness can touch it. It is touching it, or you wouldn't know it was happening. That's how you experience it, by touching it with consciousness. Right? So what is it you touch when you're touching thought? What's it made of? And what's seeing your experience? You're seeing your experience, of course. What is that? It's just you, isn't there? Is there anyone else seeing your experience? Is there anyone else there? It's just you, isn't it? You alone in your experience, just like always, isn't it? Feel the whole bubble of your experience. Where is it? What's it in? What's it sitting on? What's it floating in? It's holding it up. This bubble here. Where is it? It's here, but that just means it's here. Where's that? Where is here? Where's your experience happening? Where is that? All these energies that show up as seeing, as hearing, as thought, as touch, any experiential quality whatsoever, just wafting through like a symphony. Just feel it. Feel your experience like you're settling back in a hot tub. Just touch it all over. Feel it. You're touching it with your consciousness everywhere. Just feel what that feels like. Feel the flow of it, the spontaneity, the way it's just doing itself, coming from nowhere, going nowhere. Incredibly intricate, incredibly beautiful. Just feel the whole thing at once. The most amazing symphony. This is you, it's all you. This bubble of experience is you. You're the whole thing. You're in all of it. You are all of it. Feel that. Feel your presence as this bubble floating here that has everything in it. What's outside the bubble? What's outside the bubble of your experience? What's there? Feel that. What's there? Who's there? Where is that? This whole experiential symphony, all this amazing waves of energy, frequencies and flavors. You can't turn them up. You can't start them. You can't stop them. You can't make them more than they are. You can't make them less than they are. It's completely spontaneous, completely doing itself. You're off the hook. It's just here. You're just here. You can't not be here. You can't make any of your experience not be here. It's just you. Completely effortless and spontaneous. Everything doing itself. Look what that feels like. And here you are. It's like always, right? Here you are. The whole universe comes with it. No, this is how you always with your experience, isn't it? This is what's always happening. It's just bubble floating here. It's an amazing symphony of vibes and flavors, qualities. Just like always, Is there anything else happening? Anything missing? Anything that's not in the bubble of your experience? when you do these kinds of explorations, it doesn't really matter what you do, but I recommend it's best not to let yourself drift off too much. Just sit here and relax, be present. You know, just sort of chilling and sitting and you know. I recommend not letting yourself space out too much or go into some kind of deep thing too much or anything. You can do that, and it doesn't matter because, of course, it's the same thing there. But we're used to, you know, going into more sort of so-called altered states to try to be with weirdness. The point is to notice that just absolute, blatant, boring normalcy is the weirdness too. So just being present and just sitting with your eyes open and just checking it out, and still you can do this exact same exploration. And of course, you find the same thing because this is what there is to find. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you see when you look? Tell me.
Concept of a bubble.
Well, that's a concept. What do you see in your experience? What do you feel? This is the bubble right here.
Well, how can you know what's outside of it?
Well, don't make sense of it. Just see if you can do it. How can you know what's inside your experience? Can't answer that question either. Right?
Well, no, because it doesn't seem like it seems empty.
It does seem empty, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
In what way does it seem empty?
I don't seem to be able to touch it.
No, can't touch it. Good. Not knowing is good. Looking is good. You can do this kind of thing anytime. It can be a nice little exercise. Again, I recommend not framing it as a meditation or letting yourself space out too much. Just sort of just sit and relax and just be real and just be with with your just feel the fullness of your field of vision, feel the fullness of your field of hearing, feel the fullness of your field of sensation, feel the fullness of your field of thought. Just feel what's there. And you can, because you are. So it's easy to do, in fact. And just swim in it, feel what it feels like. And then feel the full bubble of your experience. Feel what that feels like. And try and feel what's outside it. Try and feel where it is. And you can do this any time, it doesn't need to take a lot of time or anything. But it's always rewarding because what's here is all that there is, and you may as well check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't find that the bubble has an edge.
Does it have an edge?
Or a boundary or something.
Does it have a boundary?
But what I feel has no boundary.
Right. Does the bubble really have a boundary?
Well, I mean, a bubble in a glass of water has a...
Yeah, a conceptual bubble has a boundary, but does your experience have an edge?
No.
No, it doesn't have an edge, does it? So it's an edgeless bubble.
It's actually kind of dimensionless.
It is dimensionless, but it's got a lot of dimensionality too, doesn't it?
I know, it's very peculiar.
It's very peculiar. Yeah, yeah. And check that out. Check out that peculiarity.
Well, it doesn't have a space dimension, and it doesn't have a time dimension, but it has some kind of texture or sense to it.
And the way I put it, it has infinite dimensionalities. It has all different kinds of dimensions. And, you can look at the senses, the classical senses. There's a dimension of field of vision, dimension of hearing, dimension of touch, dimension of thought. Then you can look at dimension of thought like thinking, and then you can look at dimension of thought like sort of more subtle vibes, thoughts. I mean, we don't have language for this, so I'm just being poetic, and so on. And you can look at like how many different varieties of texture can you find? Let's say, not that they're discrete and you can classify them, but just as a jumping off point for exploration, and to just go swimming in this stuff because it's real, it's actual, it's there, and we don't have a lexicon for it. We're not used to looking at it. We're used to looking at who are you and what are you doing today? How was your night last night? We're not used to looking at, wow, just look at these amazing dimensions of experience. And, does it have an edge? Well, it doesn't have an edge, but in a certain way, the farther you go in it, so to speak, not that there is far, but it gets sort of more and more rarefied or something. I mean, you can't pin it down, but still in all, it has amazing subtlety and amazing characteristics, and there's no limit to how much it can be explored. Not that you can ever actually map it out, but still in all, you're exploring your actuality. You're exploring the reality of your being in a very immediate and primal sense. I mean, if you look, you'll discover immediately that the field of your experience is what there is. There's nothing outside it. I mean, in terms of anything else, the entire world, the entire universe exists within your experience, and that's just a tiny little piece of it. Then you get into the non-universal portions that are there, and that's there too, and all of a sudden you just start getting, dimensions and dimensions and dimensions. Anyway, it's not important to classify it or to pin it down, but sort of exploring it, swimming in it, really being with it as it is, you're getting to know yourself. You're exploring the actuality of your own being, which is really what today's meeting is all about.
I mean, there is some kind of center to it.
In a way, maybe. But again, check it out. Yeah, by all means, explore it. Anything that's there, go into it. And anything that's there, you will be able to go into. Anything that's there will have depths. Anything that's there will open as you go into it, into more. But by means of this, you can find out what it really is rather than what we think of it as being or what we talk of it as being. You can be with what the actual experience of it is, very directly.
Which is the only thing I've learned.
There's millions and billions of similar little exercises you can do that are fun. A real fun one is to feel someone else's aura. So someone else that's spatially near you that you can see, just feel their aura. Don't worry about how to do it or what to do. Just pretend you can do it and do it, and just feel their flavor, feel their energy field, feel the music that their presence is playing, whatever it actually is, experientially. And that's another thing you can sort of go into and can be a very rich exploration. And in the process you can discover a lot about sensitivity and a lot about what's called being psychic and things like that. But it's a very easy exercise to do, and it's fun. You don't need to tell them you're doing it. Mm-hmm. So, you can do it on a bus or in an office or something, sitting in a park with someone sitting there, just sort of check out their aura. And it's very intimate. I mean, you can really, it's amazing that it's a fascinating experience. I mean, it's something we've all been doing all the time, maybe unconsciously or to whatever degree of consciousness, but it's something you can do very deliberately and like an exploration, and it can be fascinating. I put everyone to sleep. It's also actually a good thing to do when you're going to bed. It is actually a good way to go to sleep.
This exploration, discovering something new is what we never do anymore. We do all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's when we're kids, we do this kind of thing all the time, just automatically. We're always just spacing out into our energy and just feeling it. But it's something that's actually very easy to do, and it's a lot of fun. And it's just a question of directing the attention to the possibility, and then actually, putting in a few minutes or whatever.
That's why actually when we're doing this all the time, like touching everything, and that puts you into.
Oh yeah.
This moment.
Oh yeah, you watch it like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old that's by themselves, in a room, and they're just like, they're just dancing with nothing, just feeling the presence of their own experience in all different kinds of ways.
And they're full. I mean, to us, they're dancing with nothing, but to them, they're dancing.
Of course, because experience is a fullness. Experience is a complete fullness. Just by being experienced, regardless of what it seems to be that's happening, so-called or not, it's always full. I mean, you can be looking at nothing. You can have your eyes closed, and the field of vision is still completely full. It's just full of different sort of qualities. Experience is always full. There's never anything missing, and there's never any gaps. There's never blank spaces. It can be very subtle, but that's part of what it is too. That's part of the discovery of how subtle experience can be. And yet consciousness effortlessly can go there. There's no limit to how subtle consciousness can be with. Consciousness can be with just indescribably subtle vibes, and we don't have words for what it is, but it's experiencing.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I can feel everything, but you said not to get lost, just to be aware.
Yeah.
Basically, you have to just stay with the awareness.
Yeah.
That you are experiencing it, and then the awareness will. You said that there's no limit, because I'm thinking there might be a limit, but the consciousness this awareness has no limit.
No, it has no limit. But find out for yourself. Check it out. See if it has a limit. I mean, this is not abstract. It's very concrete, so you can check it out for yourself and explore it. Maybe yours is different than mine. Who knows, right? Yeah.
Well, I'd like to understand a little bit more about aura.
Uh-huh.
I mean, is that like those pictures?
No.
Pictures
Think of it as flavor.
Flavor.
Here, look at me. Feel what my flavor is. Now, look at Fritz and feel what his flavor is. And look at someone else and feel what their flavor is. And you should be able to detect some degree of a difference flavor. Not just you're wearing different colors or you're shaped different, but there's a different flavor somehow. Right. And you can't pin down exactly why that is or how you're telling it, but it's there. That's aura, flavor. And when you feel that flavor, then go into it. Feel it more subtly. Try and really feel what's there, rather than just having a whiff of it. Really, just feel a person's flavor, and it's sort of just like swimming into a dark pool or something. I mean, I don't know what it's like. That's all just metaphor, right? But there's all sorts of flavors and qualities there, And again, you can't make sense of it or pin it down.
But I think you do, or I think I do a lot of that.
I don't know if the word would be subconsciously. But
Absolutely.
some way to know more about.
Everyone does this all the time. Everyone is vibing everyone else. But the point is you can become aware of it and participate in it and do it very deliberately. And it's a good experiment because you learn a lot about that level of energy, which ordinarily in sort of human consensus reality we don't generally pay much attention to. And then you can start doing it with inanimate things too. Oh, absolutely. You know, check it, plants have flavor. Everything has flavor. Plants have flavor. Rocks have flavor. Stars have flavor. Everything has flavors. And just, you don't need to worry about how to do it. Just if you need to, just pretend you can. Pretend you can feel the flavor of a plant and then just feel what its flavor is like. What's the flavor of this plant? And don't try and pin it down and make sense. Just do it. Just feel the flavor. And you get something. It's like feeling the flavor of a person. You know, there's something there. And don't worry about that you can't make sense of it or sort it out or pin it down. That's not the point. The point is to sort of drink of it. It's like smelling a flower. You know, you don't need to get to the bottom of it. You just see what you can find there. And, you know, it's an experiment. It's an experiment in exploring an aspect of actual experience, what's experienceable, that we may not usually pay much attention to. And every aspect of experience sheds light on what experience itself is. And typically, all of us are very used to sort of the gross level of phenomena. You know, we're all very used to, you know, our clothes and our whatever, right? All of the day-to-day paraphernalia, you know, jobs or whatever it is we do. But these other sort of more subtle aspects of experience, we don't typically get a lot of attention, probably for most people. Yeah.
There's an aspect of that isn't there an aspect of that that's kind of like collections, like cities or regions, geographic areas, times of day.
Oh, absolutely. All that, everything. There's nothing but flavor. I mean, this is the value of this kind of investigation. Is you're opening the genie's bottle. I mean, it's Pandora's box. I mean, that's what astrology is. You know, most people, you know, it's very fashionable these days in modern time to poo-poo astrology, but if you check out the flavors, astrology is all about flavors. You start to check it out, you know, it'll astound you. But there's nothing but all of these subtle flavors. Everything is embedded in a sea, a universe of subtle flavors. And this is really the point, is just to, again, it's sort of sensitivity training of becoming sensitive to it, becoming more aware of it. Not that you need to do anything about it or anything, or, you know, make sense of it, but if it's actually there, then check it out. If it's there, it's real, and if it's real, it's interesting.
Well, it's a big opportunity for judgment.
Well, but everything is that. But it's also an opportunity to get beyond judgment, because what you find in these kinds of investigations is so amorphous. You know, you're frequently hard pressed to pull it into enough coherence to even you know there's something there, but you can't say what with enough clarity to even, you know, come down on any side about it or anything. Yeah.
But even more directly, when you get into it enough, you start seeing the judgments are baseless.
Of course, yeah.
Meaningless.
Yeah.
You don't find anything.
Yeah. Well, you see the shallowness of these judgments and assessments relative to the richness and subtlety of the experiential flavor. You know, I mean, I didn't
get that.
In other words, experience is the actual experience of anything is so multidimensional and rich and subtle and just, you know, a vast symphony, that any kind of trying to encapsulate that in a concept or in any kind of narrative it's like trying to, say what I don't know what the Amazon basin looks like in like one sentence or something. It's just so obviously absurd. The amount of censorship you have to do, the amount of detail you have to leave out, and this is the nature of judgment. Judgment. When we conceptualize things and we judge things, we're not actually judging things. We're judging stereotypes of things. We make a stick figure of something, and then that's what we're judging. We're judging the stereotype, not the thing itself. Because things are almost unjudgeable because they're so open-ended and multidimensional.
I think okay. That's like mental conceptual level that you're talking about, but I think what I'm talking about is kind of more a feeling level.
Oh, well, no, that's absolutely true. You will discover that you have sympathy or antipathy with certain flavors.
Exactly.
Very much so. Oh, yeah, that's another thing entirely.
Yeah. And, okay, that's kind of what I'm more interested in.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. You'll find because you're you. You're not plain vanilla. You're you. And so you are something. You are your own specific flavor. And so if you were like just a blank slate or just transparent glass or something, then any flavor would be indifferent. But you're not. You're you. So you have a kind of that's your litmus test or your baseline of other flavors is relative to you. So then it's like oil and water. Certain flavors are just going to be like, wait a minute, this is not my flavor at all. I don't get out of here. And other flavors you'll be like just totally, just drawn to. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. This is the basis of preference, for example, or taste. Yeah. And it's intrinsic. It's in what it's not superficial at all. On the contrary, it's what you actually are, the energy system that you consist of, that you happen to be. It has the properties that it does, and those properties give it its nature, which then defines how it interacts with other properties, or how it is in relation to other properties. That's it.
And when you say that's intrinsic, does that not change?
I don't know. It may evolve, it may develop, but I don't think it changes fundamentally. It may change when you die or something. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because it seems remarkably consistent.
Yeah, that's my observation.
And sometimes kind of hard to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's each of our challenges that we happen to be us. That's our cross to bear. My cross to bear is that I'm me. Your cross to bear is that you're you. And
why did I pick that thing up? Did I pick that thing up?
Which thing?
The cross.
No, you are it. It's what you are. You're something.
So there's no way out of that dilemma.
No. But there's no need for a way out because it's not a problem. It's just a fact. You are what you are, and that's not a problem in the least.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going off the deep end here. So a particular feeling is the negative aspect of it an interpretation? Or the resistance to it, I guess.
It's not necessarily
the negative aspect.
I'm not sure I'm following you. Basically,
some flavors. I mean, you just said some flavors are I don't.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
So when you find yourself inundated in one of those flavors that you would just prefer to not have anything to do with, what do you do?
You do your best, right? What do you do? If you can do something about it, you do. If not, you tolerate it. Whatever. It's like you might want to be healthy, but sometimes you get sick, and so what do? Well, you're sick, and you try to get healthy again, and you may succeed or you may not, and that's what you do. You give it your best shot.
I think it helps to know your enemy in the sense that to notice that when we fall into these judgments and superficial assumptions about things, that are not true. It's not like they're random or nonsensical. There's a functionality to them, which like it's that they serve a social purpose. They perpetuate a certain social reality convention.
Well, it perpetuates a social reality, but more profoundly, it can be a genuine expression, at least to some degree, of natures. I mean, you may dislike someone, and you may actually be, your nature may be contrary to their nature inherently, not superficially or socially.
Right.
I mean, that can
that's
be.
That's a true understanding.
Yeah.
I'm aware of that, but I'm talking about the ones that aren't true.
Right. Okay.
The ones that are the judgments that are superficial and that are just habitual. But to notice that when we choose to accept that, we're making a choice in favor of perpetuating some social reality that is foreign to us at the expense of our own liberation.
Yeah, sure, exactly.
So,
sure, that's always
that helps to know that.
Yeah. Sure.
So the advice would be to remain vigilant.
Well, just remain genuine. You be yourself.
Yeah.
But remain genuine. You are you, and you have your nature, and that nature has its druthers, let's say, and this is just being real. This is being honest and true. But again, from the point of view of realization, your flavors and other flavors can be profound vehicles to discovering the profundity of what this is and the subtlety of what this is and the subtlety of what you are. Because it's actual. And any actuality is primal.
Oh, that's very good to hear. Thank you.
Any actuality is primal. So in other words, your flavor and the flavors of other people is like a seam or a thread you can follow down into absolute bedrock reality, actuality. Because the nature of everything is being generated by reality itself, and embodies the qualities of reality itself. Even our neuroses and our foibles and our total delusion is actually the same thing. It actually comes directly from reality. You can even follow that back down. So pulling it back down and all that's really metaphorical.
But what seems to be a little tricky with flavors is association. Someone reminds you of something.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're talking about.
No.
Right?
No. Try to stay with a direct experience.
Well, you will be having a direct experience.
Yeah.
You'll be associated.
Well, a whole cloud of associations always shows up with any experience. Any time there's an experience, then it's sort of like it generates or is surrounded by a whole cloud of associations and concepts and fantasies and memories and whatever. But nonetheless, the direct experience is still there in the center. And you just sort of don't need to ignore that or fight it, but just stay with follow the actual experience in, so to speak. In other words, all those concepts and so on aren't a problem. Just don't let yourself don't get distracted from the flavor and go to them. Stay with the flavor.
But how am I going to know?
Because the flavor is the flavor. Concept's a concept.
The flavor knows itself.
Yeah. Plus, you learn how to do it. You can train in it. You just practice it. Like if you're interested in sort of playing with this, take 2 or 3 minutes a day or 5 minutes a day and just practice feeling people's auras, and you'll learn. You'll get better at it. Like with anything, when you gain experience, you sort of see what's going on, and you'll discover that there's a flavor, and then there's a whole chain of associations that sort of billows out from it like clouds, right? That sort of float, but the flavor's still there in the center. That's sort of the center of this big mandala of implication, right? And you kind of follow it and see just explore it. Explore what that's like. What's up with that?
So noticing.
Yes.
It's just you feel like I look at you, I just sense something and
Sure.
notice the sensation.
Yeah, and don't, and resist the urge to crystallize it into something. Just be with it open-endedly, whatever it is,
Right. Like let's say I don't like it. I really don't.
Sure.
The flavors I really don't like.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
Or let's say I love them.
Yeah.
I'm feeling like intense. The flavors I'm feeling intense love.
Yeah, it might be.
And somebody else agitates me. Oh, I'm feeling that flavor
Sure.
of agitation.
Yeah.
I just be with it. That's real. That's happening right now.
Yeah, exactly so.
So
And again, try to, in terms of this kind of an exercise, try to go to the core thing rather than letting yourself spin off into sort of side distractions of your reactions to it and all that. Even though they're there, and don't deny them, but
and the core thing would be
just the flavor, just the raw flavor.
Instead of like my idea.
Well,
like what,
well, you'll notice that these things, they coexist, they spin off. So whenever there's a stimulus, there's all sorts of chains of associations and concepts and memories, and they just sort of float around like, like clouds of pictures of I don't know what.
Stay with the moment of the flavor.
Yeah, I mean, and this other stuff will be there. Don't try to deny it or struggle with it. Just let it be. But then sort of stay with the flavor itself.
Don't go off in a tangent. Stay with the
exactly.
Core. Stay with the core of the flavor.
Exactly.
If it feels lovable, stay with the lovable.
Yeah.
Not like what lovable means or.
Exactly. Just stay with it. Just stay with the flavor. And again, you don't need to obsess about it or do it too heavy-handed. You can just sort of do it for a few minutes and just feel what it feels like. And it's kind of just sensitivity training. It's letting yourself be with your experience of things in from a slightly different angle than perhaps we usually do.
What you said before about judgment really resonated with me. It's like I couldn't put it into words until you put it into words. There's nothing to judge, and if we judge something, we're judging an idea that we have. So we're literally judging our own idea.
It's a stereotype.
Yes.
So we're literally judging ourselves when we judge something, when we say that something is good or bad, or like because it's us. It's this idea and this idea is we created this idea.
Yeah.
I created this idea that so it has nothing to do with what I'm looking at.
But that can easily overlap. Especially someone you've
Yeah.
known a long time.
Absolutely.
You mean the
have
flavor?
certain judgments.
The flavor and the judgment?
And then you want to.
Well, it all coexists, and that's part of the aspect of the slipperiness and the subtlety of experiences. Is all these different dimensions of aspects that all present themselves as like a whole holographic sort of a mandala or something, and it's all part of it. What you see is the experience and memory and association and reaction to that and all this stuff. It flashes out in this whole. I mean, you just experience it directly. Because the way you can feel a person's aura, you can also feel this whole experiential phenomena in yourself. So, look at somebody and then feel everything you feel about them at the same time as you're looking at them, and just sort of see what that's actually like. See what that cloud of dimensions is like, and see the way in which they coexist, but they aren't coherent. They aren't actually one thing that fits together nicely.
So one thing I would add too is when you're feeling into someone's energy, also be aware that it doesn't mean that they're like that all the time.
Oh no.
It's a snapshot of that instant.
Yeah, and it's not about them. When you're feeling their energy, it's just an experiment. It doesn't mean that you're right. That you're really
or that they'll necessarily be that next.
Oh no, absolutely not. Because everyone's infinite, so no one is one thing. So even if you're genuinely feeling a person's flavor, that's like saying I'm feeling the planet Earth. It's like, well, yeah, okay, you're feeling the planet Earth, but that's a pretty broad range of phenomena, and it's just like that with people. People are vast, multidimensional. People are incoherent. People don't come together into a nice, oh, you're this. It's not like that. You're just you're a sea. You're a universe of potentialities. You're a self-contradiction. You're just an infinite, openness of incoherence. So you can't like get a final knowing of the totality of that in any, it's absurd. It's like yourself. You can't know yourself that way. You can know yourself intimately, and you can know your flavor intimately, but it's not like, but it's like knowing an absolute openness that is unresolvable. You can't get to the bottom of it. You can't get to the bottom of anything. I mean, this is the whole point of this exploration, is to discover that you can't get to discover how infinite everything is, how everything is intrinsically unresolvable. Everything is bottomless. Everything is just a doorway into free fall.
And what she was saying about the feeling the flare of something and then the judgment overlapping. Well, the judgment is like another flare. It's like you're trying to feel the flare of a tree, and then the judgment comes in. The judgment is like a bird flying in between you and the tree. Well, that's another flare.
Exactly.
You notice that there's a difference, right?
Sure.
But so I think what you're saying is stay with the flare as much as you can. Stay with the core.
Well, there will always be a whole sea of just variety at present, because experience is like that, right? You're never just experiencing one thing. You're always just whoo! It's just this whole, you're thinking and you're feeling and you're reacting and you're remembering and just, I mean, God knows what, you can't classify it, right? But still in all, you can sort of space out and get distracted or follow things, or you can sort of try and stay with the center of it, stay with your sort of point of focus.
And each way is perfectly fine.
Yeah, it doesn't matter at all. It's just an experiment. You can I'll try both ways, and just the point is to learn more about what your experience actually is and how it works. It's not like it really matters that you need to feel someone's aura or something. Feeling their aura is not about them or about the aura. It's really just about exploring your potentialities of what your experience can seem like. Experience is vast and subtle, and it's not at all what we think it is. It's not what people think it is. Experience is really weird and amazing and completely astounding. But it's available. It's not hidden. It's not. So it's all of these aspects of it are completely available for exploration. I mean, that's the real fun part of it. That's sort of the good news. Is it's not. It's right here, and you can check it out. You can play with it all you want. You can poke at it and explore it.
When I look at my computer screen and this blank spreadsheet, all of a sudden it opens up.
I know.
Depthless. It just keep going, and everything, it's just moving, and then there's a geometric thing.
Yeah.
Shows up and all the work.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah. No, computer screens are good for that. Yeah. Can be a problem if you have to get work done.
Oh, yeah.
Great for spacing out. I mean, this can be a really fun exercise. I have an app on my iPad that turns the whole screen white, like it's supposed to be a flashlight or something. It basically lights up the whole screen in blank white. And if you have that and you light the screen up white and then just sit quietly and look at it for a few minutes, it just comes alive. All of a sudden, it's like you're watching a movie or something, or you think someone dosed you with acid or something. It's like, what happened? I mean, of course, you can do the same thing looking into a clear sky or something for a while. But again, all of these are just different techniques of exploring the potentialities of how experience can present itself.
Speaking of acid, would you recommend that kind of stuff?
I don't recommend it or not. I would say, to speak more generally, I would say any kind of experience that takes you out of your normalcy can be really valuable, because you are because things will present themselves in some degree of a different light, which the greatest challenge in all of this kind of investigation is dullness, and normalcy and dullness are one and the same thing, where we're just sort of things are just a certain way and that's how they are, and it just sort of ossifies into this concrete-like boringness, lifelessness. And any kind of experience where you put yourself in some mode of experience that you're unfamiliar with, all of a sudden the normalcy is just out the window. It's all alive and vibrant, and it's like, wow, what's going on? I mean, anything. It can be any kind of experience. Traveling, drug experiences, any kind of extreme exertion or sports, or doing prolonged meditation, extreme sexual activity. I mean, any kind of thing that where you're pushing your own experiential envelope into, being with your experience in a startling way, or in a way you're not used to on a sort of a day-by-day basis.
And feeling the flavor while you're doing it.
Because that's the point. In the freshness, the flavor bombards you. And normalcy, the problem with normalcy is, you lose the flavor, because the dullness is kind of a, you lose the juiciness, you lose the flavor.
You feel the flavor all the time.
Sure. Everyone does. It's not a matter of not feeling the flavor, it's a matter of letting yourself notice you feel the flavor. It's all very paradoxical. Even when you're in dullness of sort of normalcy, you're actually feeling the flavor, but somehow it's like a hypnotic thing where you don't let yourself notice it. So all very paradoxical.
So coming here is kind of like a drug experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the point. An experience like this, for most people, is some degree outside of their normalcy. And so it's sort of a little wake up. It's like it's startling. It's like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here,
And you're just doing as much as you can to provoke that.
Totally. That's my job. Yeah, that's my job.
That's it.
I'm the pebble in your shoe. If I'm doing my job.
What about experiences like anything for,
Any of those kinds of things are good, but again, they're best in their freshness rather than to get into them as a routine, because that can just become a new normalcy.
Oh, I'm talking about out of body or have you seen?
It's a particular sort of mode of experiment and spiritual practice that uses certain techniques. That's all.
It's like brain entrainment, right?
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, those kinds of experiments are good. But the problem is anything like that, like if you do it and become a lifer, become a regular, where you're sort of doing it all the time, then all of a sudden that just becomes another normalcy. The problem is, it's not the experience itself; it's its difference, its freshness. That's where the magic is.
Yeah, I always wonder about that and remote viewing and all that.
Yeah.
Remote viewing with psychic.
Sure. No, all that's just great, but it's especially good if you haven't been doing it. So like a person who's really spiritual, I would say stop being spiritual and take up football or something and drinking. Yeah. And a person that does football and drinking, I would say go on a meditation retreat. I mean, the point is to get out of your normalcy, to shock yourself into freshness by being out of your comfort zone, by being like, well, what's going on here? What do I do here? What is this? Because then you're kind of, you're sort of you're on your guard. You're up. You're awake. You're checking it out.
Yeah.
You're engaged. So, to go back to the question about LSD, for example, for a person that doesn't take LSD, LSD could be a really interesting experiment. Because, wow, I mean, it'd be shockingly different. But for a person that's a tripper and tripping, taking drugs all the time, I would say, hey, go to AA, go sober, go absolutely straight for a year, and that would be shockingly different.
So you don't believe in moderation?
Moderation is all very well and good, but I believe in moderation too. It's important to moderate your moderation. No, moderation is obviously very useful in many ways for functionality, but it all depends. You don't necessarily want to go too far over the edge where you where you throw the baby out with the bathwater, but pushing your envelope and staying a little bit challenged keeps you engaged more. It's a way of, it's like keeping and fighting trim, kind of. I mean, another really simple way to do all this stuff without any particular, mode of functioning one way or the other is just notice the spontaneity of experience. Notice how experience, every incident is completely unpredictable and has never happened before. And if you can notice that, you're always in newness. Notice how you're always in complete newness. What you're experiencing right now, you have never experienced before. And it's already gone, and you're never going to experience it again. It's never going to repeat. You might have experiences that are kind of similar, or sort of almost the same, but almost the same is a euphemism for completely different. And so notice the way experience is continually unique, continually surprising, continually spontaneous. And if you can really feel that, really see the fact of it, then you're always on the cutting edge. You're always in, wow, what's going on here? I have no idea. What's going on here? I have no idea. And that's always in actuality, that's always your condition. And if you notice it, you feel it, and you're alive to it. It keeps you awake. It's when you think you know what's going on, and it's the same old, and today like yesterday, and yesterday. You just go into dullness and normalcy, and you don't, you're not letting yourself be with the edge of it and be engaged with it.
Is this similar or the same as not doing from Don Juan Carlos Castaneda?
Maybe, I don't remember that particular aspect of that.
The idea was to do things on this normal, unthinking basis,
right,
and to instead be more present to it and change it up.
Yeah, in a way, sure, yeah, sure. It's all about noticing what is actually happening, and what is actually happening is astounding. And if it doesn't seem to be astounding, it's not because it isn't, it's because you're not noticing. And so if it doesn't seem to be astounding, get off your butt and notice the way it is astounding, whatever that takes. You can either pay more attention or you can shift gears radically or whatever, but I mean, you don't have to if you like normalcy. There's nothing wrong with it. It's as good a way to be with infinity as any.
And the astounding could be holding a pen, the way it moves through the air.
Anything.
It could be somebody's face.
Absolutely. Everything is actually absolutely astounding. And if you notice that, you don't need to do anything special because it's all special. I mean, that's really the point. Because it is. It really is that. And it's possible to realize that fully.
Nothing is insignificant.
And nothing is insignificant. Nothing is normal. Nothing is not amazing.
Everything's just amazing. Even this bubble of air right here, it seems like it's nothing, but it's
everything. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Normalcy. So that has to be like a personal experience. Normalcy. If you think of normalcy as in what society has, that could be what would be radically different for some people.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, all of this is talking about from a point of view. It doesn't. What society is doing is its problem. What you're doing is your problem. Society's version of normalcy is its problem. Your version of normalcy is your problem. Or maybe, whatever. Got into kind of an interesting area today.
What it's all about.
Yeah.
So does the same thing apply to coming to meetings like this that can become too normal?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
If this is all you do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, you can see it, if you're the kind of person that comes to meetings like this a lot, and a lot of other people that come to meetings like this a lot, you can see it. They're just like kind of on a treadmill almost, Who's in town this week? Where are you going?
I've been working in the same office for more than 10 years, same office.
Yeah.
But walking walking in my office can be electrifying.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but you're letting yourself notice.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can let yourself notice what your experience really is, then normalcy and all that just ceases to be an issue. And these kinds of techniques are more heavy-handed. Trying to get out of normalcy is more heavy-handed. A more delicate and refined and precise approach is just to really notice how amazing experience is, and bang, all of a sudden, instant freshness, instant spontaneity, instant dimensionality. Because it is that. Never not that.
Well, you're not normal.
Neither are you. Well, normal is the fantasy that there is a normal. It's its own fantasy. When you see that there's no normal and you know it deeply, then you're free of it forever. Then you're bulletproof.
Really?
Sure.
When you see
When you see the liveliness and the spontaneity and the amazing actuality of the experience of the flow of events, then how can normalcy be an issue? There's no such thing. Spontaneity and amazing non-repeatability are normalcy then, so it's just a word, it's not an issue.
You become Neo like the Matrix.
Yes, Neo like the Matrix. Right. Yeah, the Matrix is a good allegory in many ways. As of course many millions of people intuited.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was about that movie. There was something about that movie when I first saw it.
Yeah, it's got a lot of juice. Well, we've got about 10 more minutes, so if you can think of anything that's been in the back of your mind that hasn't come up yet, now would be a good time to air it if you wanted to.
Well, this is my first time seeing you in person. I just wanted to say you were a lot of fun.
Oh, well, I'm so glad. Yeah. You're fun too.
Yeah, you're a lot of fun. Make me crack up. Say everything in a real way. How many people are watching?
Right now we have seven viewers. Hi out there in TV land. But the video gets archived too, so uncounted generations may be able to watch it. Or more likely another 7 people.
But it's not archived for long now, right?
No, but there's a new system. My friend Peter Starkey in Seattle has been downloading these, and he's uploading them to a site on YouTube where they're there for perpetuity until YouTube craps out.
Really? Yeah, including all the retreats that we.
Yeah, and it's all on the link from my website.
Oh. Can you download?
Yeah, they're on YouTube.
Can you put it on a disc?
Yeah, they're on YouTube. So all you need to do is get an app they can download from YouTube, and there's a bunch of those. And then you've got them. You can own them. They're very own. Peter Brown Video.
But not 995.
That's right. Just dial the number on your screen. Operators are standing by.
Operators are not standing.
Operators are not standing.
Well, where do they remain archived? On your website or on YouTube?
No, they're on YouTube.
Yeah. So for 2 years back, we now go to the YouTube.
Approximately, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
2 years.
I mean, I don't know how many. He doesn't have all of them up. But he has a whole lot of them up.
I'm sorry. What was that?
He doesn't have all of them up, but he has a lot of them up. And all the talks are recorded audio, and they're all on my website for free. They're all just download MP3s.
We need to make you famous like Eckhart.
Oh no, thank you.
That's gonna happen.
I try to piss most people off, and that way it keeps the audience manageable.
You haven't done well enough of us.
You guys are the dregs.
You sunk to the bottom, we won't be blown out.
That's right. You're the keepers.
We're the apple and breasts.
I don't know what they're looking at, and they're just showing at one point today, there were some people on breast cancer that were just thinking oh, I thought you were done. I'm sorry, we did.
We can be done.
No.
Want to leave school early? The bell doesn't ring for another 5 minutes, but...
So this one guy that you were hanging out with taught you all this? Like, he knew this?
He didn't teach me, he showed me.
Got it. And he knew what you were teaching him. Like you knew it.
Yes, he knew it, but he wasn't a teacher. He never taught me anything. He was a drinking buddy. I used to hang out with him and drink.
And he knew it. And
yeah.
Oh, he could see it.
He was it.
He
knew it. He was it.
He was it. And then he showed you and then you saw it.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't say that he showed me deliberately, but as what I interpret as being a consequence of hanging out, spending a lot of time with him, I saw it.
Right.
And he could see that I could see it, and I could see that he could see that I could see it. It was just this whole like, wow thing.
Peter used to sort of throw the ball out there and see who caught it.
Yeah.
It was deliberate in the sense that he was putting it out.
He was a sorcerer. He was a sorcerer. He was doing all kinds of things behind the scenes, but God knows what he was doing.
And where did he get his knowledge?
From the Amazon basin. Explicitly.
Ayahuasca.
Yes.
Ayahuasca.
Hiawatha.
Do that next weekend.
No, he was just a straight guy. He wasn't a spiritual guy at all. He was an Italian Catholic, and he used to do prospecting work in the Amazon basin because he was an expert at scuba diving, and these people would fly him into the bush, and he would do scuba diving in these little ponds and rivulets in the Amazon tributaries and all that, taking any mineral samples for people that were looking for industrial diamonds. And in the course of one of those, he almost had his hand bit off by a fish, something like a piranha, and he was healed by his guides, who were he just saw them as the local natives. Turns out one of them was a witch doctor, and so he healed them with he sent a couple of his buddies off into the jungle, and they got herbs and they made a poultice and put it on where his hand was torn open, and they all pissed on it, and the one guy chanted and put his hands on his head, and they trucked Pino out to the strip in the middle of the jungle where he was going to be picked up, but they didn't have a radio, so we had to wait 3 days for the plane to come back in and pick him up. And so while he was there, they just left him there in this hut by the airstrip that was cut out of the jungle with a pot of medicine. And the guy said, just anytime you wake up, just drink this medicine. And it was ayahuasca. And so Pino was basically, stoned out on ayahuasca for about 3 days, and the plane came and took him back to Miami. And he thought he was bit in his foot and his hand. And the hand was in the poultice, and the foot had just been in his boot. They didn't do anything with the foot. So the guy said, "Oh, you don't need to. Don't worry about it. Either you'll die or everything will be fine." I'll tell you. So by the time Pino got back to Miami, he thought that his foot had been in his boot for 4 days or whatever, and he figured, "Oh God, they're going to take the boot off my back gangrene. They're going to have to amputate my leg, and I'm screwed." And so they take him from the airplane directly to the hospital, and they take his boot off, and the doctor looks at it and says, "When did this happen? You're healed." And Pino was like, "What? How can that happen?" Because he was a modern European guy. He wasn't sophisticated. He wasn't a New Ager or anything. I mean, he was sophisticated in his way, but he thought these primitive Indians with their superstitions and herbs and pissing on him is like, and chanting, it's like, what's that's going to do? He wanted like antibiotics and surgery, right? And so he was amazed that this happened. And then several weeks later, really weird things started happening in his experience, and I'll let him tell you the rest of the story. He's dead, so it'll be a little challenging to get it.
There's a story similar to that. You took a message down about a woman who went on a trek with the Aborigines, and someone really got very injured and killed them in a similar way.
Well, it's just about quitting time. Thank you all for coming. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you.
Thank you.
I hope you've had some fun. And I'll be back here, I expect, God willing, in about 2 months.
Okay, so are you here tomorrow?
No, we're flying back. We flew down this morning and flying back.